Chapter 775. In the capital, apart from the royal family, there was also the Grand Supreme Lord Temple. Some people were doing things. No matter what the result was, they just wanted the Grand Supreme Lord Temple not to disturb them while they were doing things. Throwing out the bait of the orthodoxy and the state preceptor, whether it was successful or not, would always make the people of the Grand Supreme Lord Temple discuss internally for a few days, and they would not have time to meddle in other people's business. Some things were difficult to say, but quite simple to do. A few days would be enough. Among the masters of the royal family, apart from the three great masters, are there any more powerful masters? Wang Sheng asked the Grand Abbey Lord. It was impossible for Wang Sheng to know more about these things than the Grand Abbey Lord, so it was most appropriate to ask him. Before the three great masters, there were 7 people in the previous generation. The Grand Abbey Lord thought for a moment and then replied, "But these 7 old masters have all died in the imperial city and the land of 1,000 despair decades ago. In other words, the 3 great priests are the current leaders?" Wang Sheng confirmed it once more. "As far as we know, that's it." The Grand Abbey Lord's answer was actually not very certain. After hesitating for a while, he opened his mouth again. "However, 10 years ago, before Ancestor Ling Su left the Grand Supreme Lord Temple, he once accidentally sensed a master's aura suddenly flashed in the Imperial City, but the aura disappeared in a flash. When Ancestor Ling Su went to investigate, he could not find a trace." "How powerful is the master?" Wang Sheng asked very seriously. As a sniper, he could not let go of a trace of something wrong. An expert who could be recognized by Ancestor Ling Su. He was probably the only one in the Imperial City. According to Ancestor Ling Su, "I'm afraid that the breakthrough to the peak of the legendary realm is just a step away," the Grand Abbey Lord said slowly with a look of longing on his face. 10 years ago, the peak of the legendary realm, and only a step away from breaking through? Then what was his cultivation now? Such an expert in the royal family? How come Wang Sheng had never heard of it from the emperor? Of course, it was right that the emperor did not mention it. Wang Sheng was not anyone to him. So how could he tell such a secret? Old Ancestor Ling Su's senses shouldn't be wrong. 10 years ago, old Ancestor Ling Su had already broken through that limit and was at least in the 10th stage realm or even the 11th stage realm. It was impossible for him to sense wrongly. The aura of this expert appeared in the Imperial City, so it was impossible for him to be a passing expert. Now, it was unknown whether this expert was on the side of the emperor or the side of the rebellious imperial family. "Abbey Dean, lend me a few experts of the Qing generation to guard the mansion." Wang Sheng did not stand on ceremony with the Grand Abbey Dean and directly asked for experts. "All right." The Grand Abbey Dean nodded without hesitation. There were many experts in the Laojun Temple. Even if a group of them had been sent to the lands of 1,000 despair, those that remained in the old lair would not dare to disturb them, even if there were a few more peerless experts. On the other hand, Wang Sheng's residents had a large population and needed protection. The Laojun Temple is still the Laojun Temple. There's no need to get involved in those worldly matters. Wang Sheng looked at the Grand Abbey Dean, who seemed to have made progress after overcoming an inner demon. He felt happy for him from the bottom of his heart. "Let me, a secular elder, handle these worldly affairs. Then I'll have to trouble Elder," the Grand Abbey Dean said in a rather relaxed manner. Ever since the Grand Abbey Dean had overcome the barrier of fame and fortune from the orthodoxy and the imperial advisor, he had truly advanced by a minor realm. It was just that he had yet to absorb spiritual energy to temper his body, but the change in his temperament was already extremely obvious. Even though they were talking about a major event like the change of the imperial throne, the Grand Abbey Dean still seemed extremely calm. He was completely different from when he had been enticed by the orthodoxy's imperial advisor. "Congratulations, Abbey Dean." Wang Sheng was very happy to see such a change in the Grand Abbey Dean and congratulated him. Even though the Grand Abbey Dean might have delayed them for a few days, nothing had changed and everything was calm. This meant that nothing had changed and there was still a chance to reverse the situation. "Many thanks for Elder's reminder." The Grand Abbey Dean formally returned the greeting. The conversation between the two was becoming more and more like a provocation, but everyone's hearts were as clear as a mirror. This sort of feeling was very mysterious. Wang Sheng brought Mei Er back to the capital. This time, they entered the Marquis's estate. Accompanying Wang Sheng, besides the guards he had brought with him when he left, were a few white-bearded old Taoists. These Taoists were settled in the Marquis's estate. Mei Er also remained in the estate, but Wang Sheng once more hurried to the princely estate. As soon as they saw Wang Sheng enter the estate and those beauties crowded around Wang Sheng, quite a few people who had been paying attention to Wang Sheng's whereabouts instantly breathed a sigh of relief. In the end, Wang Sheng was still unable to resist the allure of the beauties and became infatuated. Didn't they see that a few of them were actually wearing translucent muslin and burrowing into Wang Sheng's embrace? With this possible variable gone, everyone's hearts sank. The huge capital city once again calmed down, just like before Wang Sheng left. After leaving for a day and a night, whether it was the people in the Marquis's estate or the beauties in the prince's estate, when they reported to Wang Sheng, everything in the capital city was fine and nothing strange happened. The commoners lived their lives as they should, the merchants did their business as they should, and the officials attended court as they should. Nothing had changed from usual. If there was anything different, it would be that during the few days that Wang Sheng stayed in the prince's estate, other than the first day, when Mei Er was called away by the Empress actually didn't call Mei Er over any other time. There's also a rumor that the Emperor had gathered a few trusted officials to discuss something important. Those trusted officials hadn't left the imperial city for 3 days and 3 nights. As night fell, in the bedchamber, Wang Sheng was still lying in the middle like the day before yesterday, hugging a hot and soft beauty on each side and sleeping quietly. At a certain time in the early morning, Wang Sheng opened his eyes, gently patted the beauties on both sides, and sat up. This not only woke up the 2 beauties who accompanied him to warm the bed, but also several beauties who served in the bedchamber. "Don't move," Wang Sheng ordered in a low voice, but he had already quickly put on his equipment, restrained his breath, and quietly walked out of the bedchamber. The women in the bedchamber just watched Wang Sheng leave, but they all obediently lay on the bed, and no one moved. However, in the hearts of the women, there was already a layer of worry. How could it be a small matter for Wang Sheng to sneak out in the middle of the night to do something? In the courtyard outside the bedchamber, there was a large pond, which was connected to the running water outside. It was also a scenery of the prince's estate. Wang Sheng quietly walked to the edge of the pond and made a silent gesture to the beautiful guards who were looking at Wang Sheng in surprise. He sat on the edge of the pond and gently slid into the pond. There was no sound, only a circle of silent ripples on the surface of the water. Chapter 776. The beautiful guards didn't make a sound as they quietly watched their master slip into the water. They knew that they couldn't help, so the only thing they could do for Wang Sheng was to let others think that Wang Sheng was always in the Wang residence. The pond was connected to running water, so Wang Shengdong used the line word secret art and the golden pattern on his source spirit to easily hide his aura. Underwater, on Wang Sheng's feet were a pair of flippers made from special bee skin and bones. His entire body was covered in a tight-fitting diving suit made from the skin of some kind of 7-stage fish. His goggles and hard mask were originally meant for diving. The part that was originally equipped with a high-pressure compressed airbag was now connected to a storage ring pendant on Wang Sheng's neck through a tube. The oxygen cylinder actually didn't require much technology. A while ago, Wang Sheng had already asked old Tai to secretly make a batch. As for compressing air, it was also very easy. With Wang Sheng's current strength, he could use a pump to compress air to 300 atmospheres of pressure, which was enough for him to use. This set of diving equipment was originally prepared by Wang Sheng for the core of the Ground of Despair, but now it was used here. After entering the water, Wang Sheng began to use the Qianyo transformation ability. Even in the dark of the night, Wang Sheng could easily explore the water channel. With a flip of his hand, an underwater propeller appeared in Wang Sheng's hand. This was also something that Wang Sheng had already made. The array master had made a few exquisite arrays on it. As long as Wang Sheng injected spiritual energy into it, it would be able to drive the propeller to rotate at the speed that Wang Sheng wanted. Even the sound and vibration would be blocked by the array and wouldn't be transmitted outside. Without a sound, Wang Sheng turned into a water ghost that people in this world couldn't understand. He came out of the Wang residence's water channel and entered the water network of the capital. The water network was an escape route that Wang Sheng had observed the first time he entered the capital. The capital was surrounded by water from all sides, and the water network within the capital was also connected. No one would have thought that there would be someone who could move so freely underwater. It had to be known that no matter how good one's swimming ability was, one's source spirit was also an underwater creature. It was not possible for one to sneak through the capital's waterways without being discovered. After leaving the prince's mansion, Wang Sheng followed the route in his mind. His first stop was not the imperial city, but the opposite side of the marquis's mansion, where the Son of Heaven lived. The courtyard also had running water, but when entering, there was a thick iron fence blocking the way, but this was not a problem for Wang Sheng. With the serrated teeth of the custom-made tiger fang saber, Wang Sheng's current strength, and a sound-concealing formation with a radius of less than a foot, he easily cut a large hole in the water that was big enough for Wang Sheng to enter. Following the water channel, he easily snuck into the courtyard. The courtyard was very quiet. When Wang Sheng poked his head out from a dark corner, no one was alerted. However, in this dark night, Wang Sheng instantly discovered the fluctuations of the formation around the courtyard. After using the line formula, in less than 20 minutes, Wang Sheng had already entered the interior of the formation. At the same time, he also understood the use of the formation when he passed through the formation. This formation could seal off the sound of the entire mansion. Even if the sky was turned upside down inside, no one outside would hear any movement. At the same time, the formation was also a large protective formation. Ordinary experts could not enter at all. No wonder when he returned to the Marquis's mansion, there were not many people inside. So that was why. After entering the formation, Wang Sheng immediately heard a familiar breathing and heartbeat. He also smelled a familiar body fragrance and even heard some other sounds. The Empress was really here. What was even more amazing was that her movements were actually restricted. There were dozens of people outside the formation, but they were all servants, and they were people that Wang Sheng was familiar with, so there was no threat. Inside the formation, there were more than 10 people. All of them were in the 7th or 8th stage realm. Looking at their positions, they should be guarding the Empress inside. Only the Empress was here, but the Emperor was not. This had already explained a lot of problems. At least, Wang Sheng's guess was not wrong. Something must have happened in the Imperial City. 10 over 7th or 8th stage realm experts. To Wang Sheng, who was hiding in the dark and was able to control some terrifying little creatures, wasn't a problem that was hard to deal with. Especially when they were in this defensive array, even their voices were sealed, so there was no need to worry about alerting the people outside. When Wang Sheng gently knocked on the door of the Empress's bedroom, the 3 people inside all let out a cry of surprise. Opening the door, Wang Sheng saw the panicked faces of the Empress and the 2 maids. The Empress and the 2 handmaidens must have been fed some kind of medicine that restricted their cultivation. Now, they looked like 3 ordinary women. Although she did not see Wang Sheng's face, seeing Wang Sheng's unique goggles and hard mask, the Empress finally let out a sigh of relief, and a smile appeared on her face. But this smile did not last long and turned into panic. "Quick, go and save the Emperor." The Empress rushed forward and did not care that Wang Sheng was covered in water. She pulled Wang Sheng's arm and said anxiously, "He is in danger in the Imperial City now. Go and save him." "What happened? What's the situation now?" Wang Sheng did not leave immediately, but asked the Empress. At least he had to know the situation in the Imperial City to make targeted arrangements. To put it bluntly, if things were irreversible, Wang Sheng would definitely leave with the Empress and find a safe place for her to settle down instead of fighting for the Emperor. The second prince and an uncle have roped in a group of ministers, using the reason that the emperor is close to you and alienated the royal family, to get the support of several granduncles in the imperial clan court. They want to force the emperor to abdicate and give the throne to the second prince. The empress quickly used the simplest words to describe what had happened. I'm worried that if Mei-Er lives here, she will be trapped by them and used to threaten the emperor. Even the three old masters can't do it. Wang Sheng asked again. The imperial clan court invited the three of them. One of the elders from the previous generation was able to suppress the three of them in a 1-on-3 battle. The empress quickly replied, that old master luckily did not die in the land of 1,000 devastations. He has been recovering for decades, and only the first elder of the imperial clan court can command him. The first abbot might not know the secrets of the royal family, but the empress definitely knew. This old deacon was most likely the super expert that Taoist Ling Su had discovered. How is the emperor now? Wang Sheng asked again, but he knew that he had asked a stupid question. The empress had been in prison here for a few days. How could she know? He is still alive. He is not injured. To Wang Sheng's surprise, the empress answered, we have a unique way to know each other's physical condition. But he must be in a critical situation now. Go to the imperial city to save him. Chapter 777. Everything looked normal in the imperial city. At least in the eyes of the people outside, everything looked normal. There was nothing wrong. Not to mention the ordinary people outside. Even the people in the outer city of the imperial city thought that everything was normal. It had been 3 days and 3 nights since the emperor summoned a group of important officials to discuss important matters. It was not that it had never happened before, and it had even lasted longer. This time, the original prime ministers and a few princes were summoned. It was definitely a big matter. No matter how long it took, it would not be a problem. In the outer city, the officials were carrying out their duties as usual. They did not even have the qualifications to meet the emperor. They just did what they had to do here. There were officials from various departments in charge of the various functions in the capital city, and all the functions were running steadily. Under this kind of stable order, no one knew that there was an earth-shattering war going on in the inner city of the imperial city. The inner city of the imperial city was definitely heavily guarded. There was no doubt about that. Especially during the discussion, the most powerful protective formation in the inner city was activated, covering the entire inner city. Some ordinary guards were all driven out of the inner city, leaving only the most loyal 200 experts and some servants. Other than them, there were the emperor, the members of the royal family, and the important officials. From the inner city, there would be some opinions on how to deal with political affairs from the outer city. They were all passed on through regular memorials. This showed that even when the emperor and the others were discussing, they did not forget to pay attention to the people outside. Even if they only read or knew the comments, it was definitely rare to see such a diligent emperor. The people outside could only see what was happening through the gate of the inner city. As for the rest, they did not know the specific situation. No one knew that in the inner city of the imperial city, there was actually a different scene. At the entrance of the main hall, where the emperor usually discussed with the important officials, there were now 2 distinct factions. The emperor, a few prime ministers, and 1 or 2 grandmasters stayed in the main hall. Outside the main hall, there was another group, led by a few grandmasters from the imperial clan court, plus the second prince, and another group of important officials. Not far from the entrance of the inner city, there were specially people reading the memorials one by one according to the tone of the emperor and other important officials, so that the people outside would not notice anything unusual in a short period of time. However, most of the memorials were just comments of a few words. There was no emperor's seal at all. There were only a few guards left in the inner city. Under the battle between the 2 sides, less than 10 of the more than 200 guards were still alive. The rest were already lying dead on the ground. Right now, no one was paying attention to what to do with the corpses. Everyone was focused on the main hall. With the door of the main hall as the boundary, the emperor and the others were inside, while the few royal granduncles were outside, facing each other. Your Majesty, a wise man submits to circumstances. As long as you hand over the throne to the second prince, You will still be the Emperor Emeritus, the old man shouted loudly at the people inside the hall through the door of the main hall. Don't give me that. The Emperor's voice came from the main hall. This is clearly a rebellion. You want me to agree to it? Dream on. Your Majesty, you can't blame us. Your Majesty, you've gone too far. Another elder of the royal family replied unhurriedly. His Majesty is the head of the royal family, but he favors outsiders in many matters. Could it be that outsiders are closer to His Majesty's family? Nonsense. This time, it wasn't the Emperor who refuted, but another royal prince in the hall. His Majesty is a genius. Finally, under His Majesty's divine plan, the royal family has the possibility to rise again. Instead of improving, you want to hold him back. What kind of logic is this? Granduncle, he's already in such a state, and you still call him His Majesty. The second prince, who was outside the door, was extremely impatient and complained to the two granduncles. The second prince was also exasperated. If it wasn't for the tight security in the imperial city, they wouldn't have been able to bring in so many experts. Otherwise, they would have killed everyone inside. While he was complaining, the second prince couldn't help but look to the right of the crowd with a helpless expression. In the huge open space on the right of the main hall, there were 4 people in a stalemate in the darkness. All 4 of them were wearing the clothes of old eunuchs. If Wang Sheng was here, he would definitely be able to recognize 3 of them. They were the 3 great consecrators of the royal family: Chief Steward Li, Steward Zhou, and Old Eunuch Shun. The remaining one also had a head full of white hair. There were countless wrinkles on his face, and it was impossible to tell his age. It looked like it would topple over with a single gust of wind. This unfamiliar old eunuch's fists were currently facing Chief Steward Li's fists. Steward Zhou and Old Eunuch Shun were standing behind Chief Steward Li with their hands on his shoulders. The 4 of them were already in a stalemate, and none of them could free up their hands. They couldn't advance or retreat. The old eunuch was simply too powerful. The 3 great consecrators of the royal family, who were experts at the peak of the legendary realm and had experienced the baptism of the core area of the ground of Thousand Despair, had to join forces to fight the old eunuch to a draw. If either Steward Zhou or Old Eunuch Shun let go, the remaining 2 would definitely be severely injured, and they wouldn't be able to let go. However, the 3 old consecrators were not to be trifled with. The 3 of them forcefully resisted the old eunuch, but they also restrained the old eunuch until he couldn't move. Both parties could only remain in a stalemate like this, and there was no way to resolve the situation. There were at least 70 to 80 corpses of the guards lying around the 4 of them. All of them wanted to help their own people when both parties were in a stalemate, but in the end, they were killed by the force field of the 4 of them. In the beginning, both parties didn't believe it, but after each of them dropped close to 40 corpses, basically no one dared to go within 30 meters of the 4 of them. Not to mention humans, even weapons and hidden weapons couldn't break through the circle. Once they entered the circle, they would be sent flying. Both parties could only accept the consequences of this stalemate. Otherwise, it wouldn't be this situation anymore, and one party would completely suppress the other party. Is this what you should say? Faced with the second prince's grumbling, the 2 old granduncles turned around and reprimanded him. As long as His Majesty is the Emperor, he will always be His Majesty. Do you want us to call you a little fellow after you become the Emperor? If even the royal family doesn't respect the Emperor, then who else in this world will? The second prince quickly lowered his head to admit his mistake. However, his lowered eyes were already emitting an unruly light. The matter wasn't done yet, so I'll bear with it for now. Wait till I ascend to the throne, then I'll slowly deal with you old bones. Damn it, if I knew that there was no chance in the imperial city, I should have endured for a period of time. Who knows, I might be able to persuade the experts from the Laojun Temple to take action. Right now, I can only rely on the battle of attrition to kill the Emperor and the rest inside. Anyway, it had been 3 days, and the people inside had no food to eat. They could only drink water. Let's see how long they could last. If there's no other way, I'll use my killer move. This world will still be mine. Chapter 778. The reason why the emperor could hold on until now was all thanks to the enlightenment that Wang Sheng had given them. The industrial chain of Runzi Workshop gave the emperor and his advisors a huge surprise. According to such a chain, outsiders would not be able to take away Runzi Workshop's industry. So, if the position of the emperor was also treated as an industry, creating a chain of industrial chains, who could touch the foundation of the emperor? These days, the emperor did not look for Wang Sheng much, because he was referring to Wang Sheng's industrial chain to build the relationship between the capital's military, civil officials, and various departments. It was indeed very inspiring. This change was not small, so it could only be done slowly. But after a few months, it was also fruitful. Fortunately, there were these few months of arrangements. Otherwise, the several granduncles of the imperial clan court and the second prince could directly mobilize the capital's army to attack the imperial city. Now that all sides were restrained by each other, the only opportunity was to launch a surprise attack in the imperial city. Unfortunately, no matter how much they calculated, they missed one point. Originally, the second prince and the several elders of the imperial clan court thought that the previous generation old consecrator could easily deal with the 3 old eunuchs around the emperor, but now they were in a stalemate. This was unexpected, and no one could be blamed. One had to know that the old consecrator had easily suppressed the 3 experts at the peak of the legendary realm. If it weren't for the fact that the second prince and the others said that it was just a spar, the 3 experts at the peak of the legendary realm would have long been dead. Who knew that the 3 old guys around the emperor were actually so powerful? Although it was 3 against 1, they barely managed to block the old consecrator, but everyone couldn't help but sigh. The 3 old guys really had some skills. Among the 70 to 80 corpses that fell around the 4 of them, at least 10 of them were peak legendary experts. All of them died from the backlash of the 4's force field. Just the residual force was enough to kill a peak legendary expert. How terrifying was this cultivation? Fortunately, the several granduncles still had the trump card of the old consecrator. Otherwise, everyone present would have been captured by the 3 great consecrators to die. The second prince was now at his wit's end. Apart from wasting time, there was no other effective way. The only thing he could be thankful for was that he had an advantage outside. But the problem was that everyone knew that they could only waste another day at most. If there were no results after this period of time, the large number of imperial guards outside would rush into the inner city. At that time, it would be their turn to suffer miserably. The damned commander of the imperial army was actually unbridled. The second prince and the others were to be blamed for not having enough time to act. They thought that the old consecrated master would be able to solve everything. They miscalculated and fell into such a dilemma. The array formation in the main hall was supported by the Son of Heaven and a few other ministers. Fortunately, the defensive ability of the array formation was first class, and the rebellious ministers outside could not break it. This kind of formation could not be broken without the use of military formations and super experts. This was also the reason why Tianzi and the others were able to persist until now. As a prince, the second prince understood that even if he had the upper hand, he could not go overboard. Therefore, it was basically his 2 granduncles who took the lead. He just followed behind and waited for the crown of the emperor to fall on his head. Granduncles, if we really can't do it, we can only use the empress to break through. The second prince had endured for 3 days and really did not have much patience. He whispered to the 2 granduncles, "Our people have secretly controlled the empress. What do you think?" Basically, as long as one was in the royal family, basically everyone knew that the Son of Heaven was infatuated with the empress. Even if there were 3,000 beauties in the harem, all of them added up were not as favored as the empress alone. If they did not know this, they would have captured those concubines in the harem to threaten the Son of Heaven. Unfortunately, everyone knew that even if all the concubines in the harem were killed, it would not be able to shake the Son of Heaven, unless it was the empress. Of course, these princes were not the children of the empress. The empress had not had any children all these years, which also gave these princes a chance. But the more it was like this, the more worried these princes were. If one day the empress gave birth to a son, what would happen to them? There seemed to be no kinship in the royal family. Hadn't the seventh prince been beheaded and confiscated by the Son of Heaven? Several royal uncles had already followed in the footsteps of the seventh prince. It was all because of Wang Sheng, an outsider. At this point, there was finally a voice of resistance within the royal family. Your Majesty, we really don't want to delay any longer. The two granduncles of the imperial clan court had long run out of patience. At this moment, they finally nodded. One of them shouted into the hall, "The Empress has been controlled by us. If your Majesty continues to be stubborn, we can only be impolite." There was no sound in the hall. The lights had long been out, and it was dark. There were still two everlasting lamps outside, so everyone could see the scene at the door. At this moment, when the words of the granduncles came out, everyone began to wait, waiting for the Son of Heaven to make a decision. After a while, just when the second prince had completely lost his patience, the Son of Heaven's voice finally came from the hall. "The sect is unfortunate to have people like you who forget your ancestors." The Son of Heaven's voice was very clear and firm. "I believe that the Empress will understand my helplessness. For the sake of the country, I will not take a step back." He would not take a step back. Although he said it resolutely and decisively, the Son of Heaven was going to sacrifice the Empress for the sake of the country. What country? The second prince couldn't hold back anymore. He directly jumped up and shouted into the hall, "Isn't there another woman born with a natural charm? Either you like her, or you think that she's like your dead daughter. You take care of her in many ways, disregarding the interests of the royal family. Do you still think that you are the head of the Su family? Do you also care about the interests of the Su family?" Short-sighted. There is only a scornful comment from the Son of Heaven, and then there was no more sound. "I'm short-sighted? You're far-sighted?" The second prince roared. "Yes. I just can't bear to see you give benefits to others. I'll order people to kill the Empress right now. Kill that mayor, and that Marquis Changsheng that you've conferred, I'll have people tear him to pieces right now. Then I will snatch the Runzi workshop and Qian Xinyuan and distribute them to the royal family. Let's see if they will support me or you." After the second prince finished his roar, there was a moment of silence. The second prince himself had said what he had wanted to say for a long time, and he felt extremely carefree. "Sorry." An abrupt voice suddenly rang in everyone's ears. "I seem to have heard someone say that they want to kill me and snatch my properties." Chapter 779. The sudden interjection of a strange voice caused everyone to turn pale with fright. Where did this stranger come from? This was the inner city of the imperial city, not to mention the layers of protection from the outside to the inside. Now that the inner city's protective array had been activated, it was impossible for anyone from the outside to enter. It was not to say that experts could not break this array, but even if they did, they needed to make some noise. If a large number of experts from the outer city violently broke the array, they would have long been wrapped up like a dumpling. The people inside would also have heard the noise. It was impossible for them to be unaware. However, the person who suddenly spoke was clearly within the formation. How did he enter the protective formation of the imperial city's inner city without making any noise? Could it be that this was a world-shocking grandmaster of array formations? Wait, the second prince suddenly reacted. Did the voice just say that someone wanted to kill him and steal his property? The second prince just said that someone wanted to kill Wang Sheng and steal Wang Sheng's property. Could it be that this person was Wang Sheng? It was still early in the morning, there were no lights in the hall, and there was no moon in the sky, only a few stars shining. The only source of light for everyone was the two everlasting lamps at the entrance of the hall. Although they were not very bright, they were very stable. Everyone had already adapted to the light here, but suddenly they could not find Wang Sheng's figure. The few remaining guards reacted very quickly and immediately protected the second prince and the several granduncles from the imperial clan court. But no matter how much they probed with their spiritual qi, they could not find any trace of Wang Sheng. As for looking in such a dark place, it was impossible to see Wang Sheng. Compared to the people outside who were on high alert, the people in the hall suddenly breathed a sigh of relief. The emperor and the two ministers who had seen Wang Sheng before could already tell that it was Wang Sheng's voice. As long as someone from the outside came in, they could spread the news, and the people outside the door would not be a concern. Especially since the person who came in was an old acquaintance of the emperor, Chang Shengho, the emperor greatly appreciated. This was even more reassuring. Chang Shengho, just now the second prince spoke without thinking in a moment of desperation. Marquis, please do not take it to heart. A crafty granduncle of the imperial clan court, regardless of where Wang Sheng was, immediately said, "We will never offend the Marquis in any way." The second prince also came to his senses. As long as Wang Sheng left the formation, once the news got out, they would be finished. She no longer roared like she did when she threatened the emperor. She hurriedly changed her tone to a gentle one and said to Wang Sheng, who was in the darkness, "Marquis Changsheng, I was in a moment of desperation. I have absolutely no intention of offending you or your property." In the darkness, Wang Sheng did not respond, but this silence was even more terrifying. Changxing Ho, this consort hereby swears that I have absolutely no intention of offending you. The second prince became more and more anxious. He looked at the darkness around him and did not know where to shout. He could only raise his voice. In addition, I promise that if I become the emperor, I will immediately confer the title of Duke Changsheng to you. The imperial family's shares in Qiansheng Yuan and Runzi Workshop will be returned to you, Duke. Ha! In the darkness, Wang Sheng did not answer. Instead, the emperor in the hall opened his mouth. You have to ascend to the throne to be conferred the title of Duke Changsheng. I can do it now. As for the shares in Qiansheng Yuan and Runzi Workshop, the emperor did not mention a word about them. This immediately made the second prince feel that he had seized the opportunity. Marquis Changsheng, you see, he only gave you a worthless title of duke, but he still wants to monopolize your annual income of hundreds of millions of gold coins. The second prince was now very clear about the impact of Wang Sheng's attitude on their success or failure. He did not care about anything else and kept promising, I will return all of it to you. In addition, after the extermination of their families, I will also give all of it to you. What do you think? Wang Sheng was wantonly accumulating wealth in the capital. Whoever said that Wang Sheng was willing to be poor and did not like gold coins must be a fool. Since Wang Sheng liked gold coins, then he would buy them with gold coins. Oh right, didn't Wang Sheng accept more than 600 beauties and forget to go home? If he liked beauties, the second prince could also send out a lot of beauties. Marquis Changsheng, if I ascend to the throne, I will reward all the women in the capital to you. The second prince immediately tried to bribe Wang Sheng. Don't you like women who are naturally seductive? There is one more in the capital. If I ascend to the throne, I will immediately give it to you. The conditions are so good that people can't believe it. Wang Sheng's voice finally sounded from a certain direction, but it was full of mockery. He has always been a short-sighted person. Do you think he has any great talent or strategy? The emperor's mocking voice came from the hall, with unspeakable sarcasm. Return the shares of Runzi Workshop and Qiansheng Yuan to Marquis Changsheng. We are all in a cooperative relationship. Without interests, who would believe it? I said you were stupid, and you still don't want to admit it. How can I have such brainless sons? You shouldn't have set your eyes on the temple of Old Supreme Lord. Wang Sheng's voice sounded again from another direction. Push out the first prince, promise to worship Tao sect as the national religion, and the temple of Old Supreme Lord as the national teacher. I don't know which one of you suggested this, but if you dare to set your eyes on the temple of Old Supreme Lord, you must be prepared to bear the consequences. Found him. A guard beside the second prince reported in an extremely low voice. I gave you face, but you don't want it. The second prince's expression changed instantly and immediately became murderous. If you want to cooperate, then I will let you live a few months in peace. But since you don't know how to appreciate my kindness, then don't blame me for being ruthless. Kill him. Following the second prince's order, 6 8th-degree realm experts suddenly pounced in one direction. 6 experts. They had just locked onto Wang Sheng's position, and they could definitely kill him in one strike. The second prince's order was so fast that the two granduncles from the imperial clan court next to him didn't have time to stop him. The two old men only had time to cry out, "No." But a few guards had already rushed out. They had rushed out, but the expected sounds of weapons hitting flesh or fighting did not ring out, only the sounds of the guards rushing out. Very soon, the 6 guards returned to the second prince's side, their faces full of fear. They had obviously heard Wang Sheng's voice and felt Wang Sheng's aura. How could there be no one there when they rushed out? How could the second prince not know that his words and the guards' actions had completely angered Wang Sheng? But what else could he do at this time? He could only think of ways to provoke Wang Sheng, to make him expose his aura. Hiding the head and showing the tail, do you think you can turn the tide alone? The second prince mocked loudly. Arrogant fool, wait till I ascend the throne. I will definitely tear you into pieces and confiscate your entire family. Bang! The reply to the second prince was a clear sound of a bowstring vibrating. Chapter 780. The distance was very close, so there was no delay between the speed of the arrow and the speed of sound. That delay was negligible. The bowstring vibrated, and all the people who could move subconsciously shrank their necks. Almost at the same time, they heard a loud explosion. Everyone's first reaction was to check if they were injured. There was no pain in their body, so it shouldn't be them. Then, was it their companions? However, what made the second prince and the 2 granduncles rejoice was that the one who was shot was not one of them, nor was it the expert guard around them. The cultivation methods of the royal family were basically similar to the emperor's. They were not combat methods, but they were to prolong one's life and increase one's intelligence. Therefore, they did not immediately notice where the explosion occurred. When the heavy arrow shot by Wang Sheng exploded, it was because of a strong array, not gunpowder. Therefore, there was no fire in the explosion, only a sound. It was very normal that no one could see it. The few nobles who were the leaders were very glad that the arrow did not hit them, which made them look down on Wang Sheng from the bottom of their hearts. If he had the time to shoot the leader directly, wouldn't the situation be settled? He was so wishy-washy that he could not even shoot an arrow accurately, or he wanted to keep the lives of few nobles to bargain. With such thoughts, even if such a person was powerful, he would not be a big threat. It was nothing more than a bargaining chip. However, the guards around the second prince felt as if they had fallen into an ice cellar, and their bodies were cold. Wang Sheng's heavy arrow did not shoot at any of them, but it directly shot at the head of the old consecrated elder who was fighting with the 3 great consecrated elders. Ordinary experts of the legendary realm could not enter the circle, but Wang Sheng's heavy arrow did not have the slightest hindrance. Perhaps it was because the speed was too fast, or perhaps it was because the force carried by the arrow was too strong. Anyway, the heavy arrow directly hit the side of the old ancestor's head. It seemed that it had directly hit the ear hole. The array on the heavy arrow was activated, probably not because it shot through the old ancestor's head, but because it was reflected by the old ancestor's spiritual energy. The power of the explosion did not directly hit the old ancestor's head, but the surface of the old ancestor's head. The second prince and the others could not sense it, but the guards could. The old ancestor's strength was indeed astonishing. Even Wang Sheng's heavy arrow didn't hurt him at all. At most, it made him look a little embarrassed. If this had happened 3 days ago, when the ancestor and the 3 great consecrators had just started a fight, even a peak legendary expert would have been killed by the force field of the 4 of them. Until now, several 8-stage realm top exponents didn't dare to go near that side, afraid that they would be sucked into it and lose their lives. However, it was already 3 days later. The elder ancestor and the 3 great reverends have been fighting for 3 days and 3 nights without stopping. For experts like them, that circle was still a dead and that they could not enter, but for Wang Sheng's heavy arrows, it did not affect them at all. The great elder of the Dai Kingdom, as well as the hundreds of experts of the victorious Return Kingdom, had died at the hands of Wang Sheng. Among them, Wang Sheng's heavy crossbow had played a big role. It was not surprising that he could kill a legendary realm expert in one shot. Now, Although Wang Sheng's first heavy arrow didn't kill the old ancestor, and it didn't even break through his defense, don't forget that a single heavy arrow was equivalent to a fatal blow from a legendary realm expert. Such an attack, under the situation where the old ancestor was fighting with the three great reverends, how many times could he withstand it? Sure enough, before the second prince and the others realized how serious the situation was, Wang Sheng's second arrow had already hit the super old reverend. This time, Wang Sheng changed his angle and was not in his original position. However, after Wang Sheng shot two heavy arrows, the guards still couldn't find Wang Sheng's position, which made them feel very desperate. What made them even more desperate was that this time, Wang Sheng's arrow was aimed at one of the old ancestors' eyes. Moreover, it was a direct hit. The only thing the old consecrator could do while fighting against the three old eunuchs was to close his eyes and rely on his eyelids and the powerful spiritual energy he had cultivated for so many years to resist this fatal blow. This time, the old reverend wasn't as lucky as the last arrow. The sharp tip of the arrow directly pierced an inch deep into the old reverend's eye. Red blood and transparent eye fluid splattered out, and then the violent explosion slapped his entire face. In the darkness, no one could see such a magical scene except for Wang Sheng. Even the three great reverends, who were directly opposite him, only knew that Wang Sheng had come and helped them shoot two arrows at the opponent. The opponent's mind was greatly restrained, and he might even be injured, so he couldn't see so many colors. The old reverend's strength was really shocking. The eyes could be said to be one of the most fragile organs in the human body. Wang Sheng's arrow was enough to kill a master of the late legendary realm, but it only pierced the old reverend's eye. It was impossible for him to go any further. However, this was enough. The old reverend was facing the three great royal reverends who were still fighting with him. Suddenly diverting his strength to resist this fierce arrow would inevitably lead to the dispersion of his strength. Puff! A mouthful of blood spurted out from the old reverend's mouth. This was the first time since the beginning of the battle between the four people, and also the most soul-stirring one. The nobles on the second prince's side finally understood where the two bowstring sounds and the arrow explosion came from. Hearing the sound of someone vomiting blood, everyone's face turned deathly pale. One of the most important reasons why everyone was able to stand here and force the emperor was because of the old consecrator's powerful strength. He alone withstood the combined attack of the three great consecrators, forcing them to join forces and not be able to move. If not for the old reverend's help, the three great reverends would have been able to crush them like ants if they wanted to force the emperor to abdicate. Before, they thought that Wang Sheng just wanted to keep their lives to bargain, but they didn't expect that Wang Sheng would directly destroy the foundation of their standing here. Once something happened to the old reverend, the three great reverends would slow down, and none of them would be able to leave this place alive. Your Majesty, we surrender, but please don't destroy the royal pillar. The two great reverends of the imperial clan court made a prompt decision, and directly knelt at the entrance of the main hall and begged the emperor inside. The old reverend can't afford to lose him. As long as the old reverend was fine, the two great reverends still had hope of survival, otherwise everyone could only die here. Chapter 781. For that one moment, the emperor was really tempted. A top exponent who was on par with the three great reverends. If he could keep him for his own use, the royal family's high-level power would be doubled. Just a little bit more, and the emperor almost spoke. Just at this moment, the third sound of the bowstring was heard. The target of the heavy arrow this time was still the old reverend's injured eye. His face was already injured, and now that he was attacked by the three great reverends, his internal organs were also injured. This heavy arrow was something that the old reverend would not be able to take on. The arrow mercilessly pierced through the old consecrator's eye, through his skull, and into his brain. Following that, the array on the heavy arrow was activated and it exploded violently. In fact, the moment the arrow entered his brain, the old reverend had already lost his life. The spiritual chi in his body suddenly lost control, and the heavy arrow exploded, blasting the old reverend's brain into pieces. The three great reverends who were attacking fiercely suddenly lost all their resistance, and all their attacks landed on the old reverend's body. Boom! The old reverend who had just displayed his prowess to fight against the three great reverends was instantly blown up by the powerful spiritual chi of the three great reverends. This time round, the old reverend's body directly exploded into the finest powder. A bloody smell drifted out, but the old reverend had already disappeared without a trace. The three old reverends' reaction was extremely fast. Facing this situation without a second word, their figures disappeared like a phantom. Following that was a series of miserable shrieks. By the time the miserable shrieks stopped, the second prince and the rest then discovered that the few guards who were standing beside them earlier were all dead bodies on the ground. Even after 3 days and 3 nights of continuous spiritual chi bombardment, the three great reverends' battle power was still enough to kill these 7th and 8th stage realm guards in seconds. The second prince and the rest who had plotted against the rebellion were all dumbfounded. The situation had changed, and at this moment, they had all turned into lambs waiting to be slaughtered. The reason why they didn't die immediately was because the supreme martial artist in the main hall didn't say anything. The 2 old granduncles from the Imperial Clan Palace were already in a daze. They couldn't imagine why Wang Sheng would cut off their escape route when they had no enmity with Wang Sheng. But now it was all useless. With the death of the old guardian, the entire Imperial Clan court no longer had the power to keep the emperor in check. Speaking of the Imperial Clan court, if it weren't for the fact that the 2 of them controlled this extremely powerful old worshipper, they wouldn't have been able to strut around like this. Although their seniority was high enough, at least 2 generations older than the Son of Heaven, so what? The Son of Heaven was the head of the royal family and could directly command the Imperial Clan court. Without the balance of high-end military forces, the Imperial Clan court no longer had any restraints on the Son of Heaven. In short, they were dead meat. The ministers who had followed the second prince and the 2 granduncles of the Imperial Clan court in the rebellion were all dumbfounded. How did this situation, which had originally been in their favor, suddenly take a turn for the worse? Someone was quick-witted and quickly knelt on the ground to ask for forgiveness. Someone was already stunned on the spot and didn't know what to do. When he finally saw the movements around him and saw his colleagues kneeling on the ground, he immediately reacted. He quickly followed suit and knelt on the ground, continuously begging for forgiveness from the emperor in the main hall. The situation was hopeless. Everyone had the same thought in their mind. What they had committed this time was a great crime. Kowtowing would work. The second prince was even more stunned than the ministers. He couldn't believe what he had seen. However, the fact that there were 3 old eunuchs standing at the entrance of the main hall with gloomy faces was an indisputable fact. In other words, their operation to force the emperor to abdicate had failed. What did they fail in? They underestimated the strength of the 3 great worshippers. They didn't respond to the emperor's recent defensive arrangements. Although they bribed a guard commander outside the imperial city, they couldn't bring in a large number of experts. All of these were possible. In addition, the lack of preparation caused by the hasty uprising was also a huge reason. But there was no other way. If they didn't start now, when the emperor's recent arrangements were completed, there would be no chance at all. Did the second prince really not understand? He knew better than anyone else. The royal family had been taught these things since they were young. The emperor's arrangements were so targeted. As long as one had enough political brains, after understanding the emperor's overall movements, they would definitely understand the emperor's intentions. If they didn't do it now, there would be no more chances. The result of the hasty uprising was that the old worshippers and the 3 great worshippers were in a deadlock. Even at this point, the second prince still had a big chance, because the people in the main hall had actually reached their limit. The array would not be able to hold on for much longer. At most, they could hold on for another 2 to 4 hours. Before dawn, their array would lose the support of spiritual energy and dissipate. At that time, the second prince still had 7 to 8 guards, which would be the decisive force. Unfortunately, who would have thought that the Chongqing Marquis, Wang Sheng, would suddenly appear? What a joke! Didn't he go to the Laojun Temple and then return to the Pile of Beauties? How could he suddenly appear? How did he know? When the three great worshippers completely controlled the situation, the array in the main hall quickly dissipated. Just like the second prince's speculation, the people inside couldn't hold on for too long. They were only a step away. Unfilial son, why don't you kneel down? The emperor's voice came from the main hall. With a trace of deep exhaustion, he shouted at the second prince angrily, "Surrender without a fight. You can't catch me." The second prince couldn't care less now. He shouted at the three great worshippers who were looking at him, "You can't kill me either. The empress is in my hands. If you dare to touch me, my men will kill the empress." At this moment, the second prince's eyes were bloodshot. He had been enduring for 3 days and 3 nights. His nerves suddenly relaxed because of the complete failure, and he became crazy. The way he shouted was like a madman. At this moment, the three great worshippers didn't dare to act rashly. If the second prince used the empress to threaten the emperor could bear to give up the empress. That was because the situation forced him to make such a painful decision. However, now that he had completely gained the upper hand, if the empress was hurt, the three of them would not be able to redeem themselves even if they died 100 times. In the main hall, the emperor was also silent. This unfilial son actually dared to use the empress to threaten him. He deserved to die 1,000 times. However, the empress was in his hands. It was a concern that he had to consider. What should he do now? The empress is a guest in my manor. Wang Sheng's voice came from the darkness again, completely destroying all the second prince's hope. I'm tired. I'm going back to sleep. Goodbye. Chapter 782. Wang Sheng's words completely destroyed the second prince's hope. The second prince, who had been clamoring crazily, suddenly collapsed. Impossible. The second prince murmured, "How is this possible?" Although he said it was impossible, the second prince knew very well that the possibility was very high. Of course, he knew where the empress was imprisoned. It was just opposite the Ho Fu. It was a piece of cake for Wang Sheng to rescue her and send her to the Ho Fu. This time, all the second prince's bargaining chips were lost. He no longer had anything to threaten the emperor or the three great consecrators. He had completely failed. When the emperor heard Wang Sheng say that the empress was a guest in the Ho Fu, he let out a long sigh. In the Ho Fu, it was definitely safe for the time being. There was no need to worry about the empress anymore. But when they heard the reason for Wang Sheng's departure, the emperor, the three great consecrators, the officials in the hall, and even the rebellious officials kneeling outside were all speechless. This was the inner city of the imperial city. The emperor was in the hall. Even if he had made a great contribution, shouldn't he be waiting respectfully for the emperor to summon him? He actually ignored the emperor because he was sleepy and wanted to go back to sleep. What a good opportunity to get close to the emperor. What a good opportunity to leave a greater contribution in front of the emperor. Wang Sheng left just like that, without even showing his face. In the court, whether it was the Grand Master or the officials, no one could understand Wang Sheng's mentality. How could such a person become a marquis, and a hereditary marquis? Among so many people, only the emperor and the three great consecrators knew that Wang Sheng had never treated the title of marquis as a treasure. He had never put it in his eyes. Today's appearance could be said to be a great contribution to the rescue. For Wang Sheng, it was at most a helping hand to his partner. There was not much meaning at all. At this moment, the situation was completely stabilized. The three great consecrators firmly protected the emperor, and the officials around the emperor quickly left the inner city. They gathered the imperial guards and arrested all the rebels. They had completely lost the will to resist, so they were not in a hurry to be beheaded on the spot. They could be detained and interrogated slowly. The imperial army and a large number of internal servants were dispatched that very night. They surrounded the mansions of all the officials who were involved in this matter. In the middle of the night, they began to seize people and confiscate their properties. All of a sudden, there was a storm in the capital. Countless people were woken up from their dreams and faced the greatest nightmare of their lives. The originally dark capital instantly became brightly lit and heavily guarded. Countless people were awakened by the commotion outside. Hearing the sounds of armors and weapons clashing against each other, they hid in their houses and shivered. They didn't know what kind of terrifying encounter would befall them. More than half of the capital's residents were awakened. They lay on the ground in fear, not daring to move. However, there were a few places that had not been harassed. They had remained quiet and peaceful. No army had approached them at all. Among them, Wang Sheng's house of Marquis Changsheng and the one that belonged to Wang Sheng were one of the peaceful areas. Furthermore, it was an important area that the emperor had personally ordered not to be disturbed. 2 streets away, no one dared to make a loud noise. No one dared to make a sound that would alarm those 2 streets away. The reason why they could remain so quiet was partly because of Wang Sheng and partly because of the empress. They could alarm anyone, but not the empress. Not long after Wang Sheng left, Steward Zhou went straight to the Marquis Manor under the emperor's orders. Although Wang Sheng said that the empress was safe and sound in the Marquis Manor, it was only Wang Sheng's words. Who knew if it was a ploy to scare the second prince? In the end, it was best to let Steward Zhou go and take a look. As for why it was Steward Zhou, of course, it was because Steward Zhou had always been serving the emperor and empress opposite the Marquis Manor. He was most familiar with the Marquis Manor and knew everyone there. It was the most convenient for him to investigate. Steward Zhou did not knock on the doors of the Marquis Manor in the middle of the night. Instead, he wanted to rely on his extraordinary skills to secretly sneak into the Marquis Manor. With Steward Zhou's cultivation, there should not be many people in the Marquis Manor who would be able to discover him. However, before Steward Zhou could get close to the walls of the Marquis Manor, he discovered that there were many experts with very strong auras inside the Marquis Manor. The auras of these experts were very peaceful. It made Steward Zhou immediately think of the legendary experts from Laojun Temple. It was probably impossible to sneak in and even more impossible to force his way in. Steward Zhou could only think of another way. Wasn't the Empress imprisoned when she was staying in the side courtyard? Wouldn't it be clear if he went to the side courtyard opposite the Marquis Manor to take a look? With Steward Zhou's status, no one stopped him from entering the side courtyard opposite the Marquis Manor. When Steward Zhou discovered the array in the inner courtyard, he was furious. For a few days, none of the trash in the side courtyard realized that something was wrong. It was either there was a traitor or they were incompetent. The array was intact, so Steward Zhou did not dare to act blindly without thinking. However, thinking that Wang Sheng did not have the need to deceive the emperor, Steward Zhou clenched his teeth and decided to rely on his strong cultivation to forcefully break the array. However, Steward Zhou only needed to attack, and the array was shattered. Without the support of the spiritual energy of an expert, the array was only left with a shell. It would shatter with a single strike. In the inner courtyard, there were corpses all over the ground. It was obvious that they had died instantly. Steward Zhou did not care about this and rushed into the sleeping quarters. There was no one inside. There was no empress, no maids, and no corpses. Seeing this, Steward Zhou let out a long breath. The corpses on the ground were definitely the handiwork of Wang Sheng. He did not know what method he used to kill all the guards in an instant. But no matter what, the empress should be safe and sound, as Wang Sheng said. This was enough. There were so many Laojun Temple experts in the Marquis Manor. There were even a few Legend Realm experts. The empress should not have to worry. After confirming this point, Steward Zhou could finally be at ease. Suddenly, Steward Zhou felt abnormally tired. He was an old man who was close to 100 years old. He had fought with the old consecrator for 3 days and 3 nights without rest. In addition, he had searched anxiously along the way. Now that he relaxed, his eyelids felt as though they weighed 1,000 kilograms. He almost could not hold it. But no matter how tired he was, Steward Zhou understood that this was not the time to rest. He still had to quickly report to the emperor. He had to oversee the imperial city with Chief Steward Li and Old Eunuch Shun to deal with the rebels and protect the emperor. Fortunately, he was not injured this time. Otherwise, he did not know how many things would be delayed. Sometimes, he really envied Wang Sheng. Even in front of the emperor, he felt that he could go back to sleep when he was tired. He did not have to be like the three great consecrators. Chapter 783. That night, there were definitely many people who couldn't sleep. However, Wang Sheng was definitely not one of these people who couldn't sleep. After carefully sending the empress to the marquis's mansion and dealing with the old minister of offerings in the imperial city, Wang Sheng disappeared silently and returned to the prince's mansion without anyone noticing. Regardless of whether he entered or left the imperial city, the streets were filled with royal guards who were on duty at night, as well as the patrolling experts that the second prince had secretly arranged, but none of them saw a trace of Wang Sheng. It was as if Wang Sheng had fallen from the sky and flown away. In the pond of the prince's mansion, a head suddenly emerged from the water. Although the beautiful guards were mentally prepared, they couldn't help but be shocked at this moment. Seeing that it was Wang Sheng, they were relieved. Several beautiful guards had already prepared dry towels. As soon as Wang Sheng came out of the pond, the women didn't say anything. They quickly went forward to help Master hoe dry with the towels and then drove Wang Sheng back to the bedroom. Next, the traces of Wang Sheng coming ashore were immediately cleaned up. Everything was done in the darkness with the help of a faint light not far away. It was silent and didn't alarm anyone outside the mansion. In the bedroom, several beautiful women were still waiting in the same state as when Wang Sheng left. Seeing Wang Sheng come in quietly, all the women secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Subsequently, Wang Sheng got into the warm quilt and fell asleep comfortably under the warmth of the two beautiful women. The emperor was very tired, but he could only rely on the tonic in the palace to support himself. If he didn't catch the second prince and the forces of the imperial clan court, the emperor would definitely not be able to sleep tonight. The preparation for a rainy day in the past few months finally came in handy. These days, as long as there was a transfer that didn't conform to the plan, then all of them were problematic. He would arrest them one by one and interrogate them. Perhaps those people also knew that the situation was hopeless, so not many people resisted and obediently allowed themselves to be arrested. Occasionally, there would be a few who resisted, but their fates were rather miserable. They were killed on the spot, and their families were exterminated without mercy. The Son of Heaven's efficiency was very high. At dawn, he had basically controlled 90% of the rebellious ministers. In the morning, except for one or two who noticed something was wrong and quickly escaped, the rest were all imprisoned and waiting for interrogation. At this point, the biggest imperial family power in the court that was not on the same side as the emperor was swept clean by the emperor. Taking advantage of this opportunity, a few fellows who had been gossiping within the royal family were also put in prison as accomplices. Among them, there was no lack of smart people. Once they heard the commotion and realized that something was wrong, they immediately bowed their heads to the emperor. They ran to the emperor and kowtowed to apologize, which could be considered as avoiding the misfortune of being purged. In the morning, when Wang Sheng woke up with a beauty in his arms, the Son of Heaven was still arranging the defense of the capital with red eyes. Through the rebellion of the second prince and the others, the Son of Heaven realized that there was a huge loophole in the defense of the imperial city. He had to fix it first. Not long after Wang Sheng woke up, Mayor ran over from the Hofu. Aunt Sue had already been sent by Uncle Sue to fetch Steward Joe. Before she left, Aunt Sue said that she wanted to thank Wang Sheng. Next time, she and Uncle Sue would host a banquet at home to welcome Wang Sheng and Mayor. To be honest, when Wang Sheng suddenly appeared last night to send the Empress to the Hofu, Mayor was also shocked. However, she was very sensible and did not ask much. She only accompanied the Empress to rest for the night. Until now, Mayor actually did not know what had happened because the Empress told her to stay in the Hofu for the next 2 days and not to run around. Moistening Z Workshop and Qian Xingyuan were left to their respective shopkeepers. The capital was filled with a tense atmosphere of mutual hostility. However, it was a different scene in Wang Sheng's Wang residence. Mayor pestered Wang Sheng, asking Wang Sheng to fulfill his promise and design fitness clothes for them. There were so many sports brands on Earth. Was this still a problem for Wang Sheng? The swimming pool in Ho Fu had been completed these few days. It was the same as the one in the Ho Fu, maybe even more advanced. Since that was the case, Wang Sheng simply moved all the fitness equipment that he had Old Man Tai and the others make over. He also had Old Man Tai's disciples make a few more sets and send them over. There were hundreds of beauties here. Even if they took turns using the equipment, they would not be able to keep up with so many people. It was better to make more sets. The Ho Fu specially opened a large courtyard, enough for 100 to 200 people to exercise together. The clothes were easy. Linglong Workshop had hired 3 female grandmasters to bring their disciples. Together with the beauties in the Ho Fu, it was enough. 2 of the female grandmasters were tailors, and 1 was a leather shoemaker. This basically covered the most basic needs. The women's clothes in this world were not suitable for exercising, but the camouflage protective clothing was definitely feasible. Unfortunately, it was suitable for men. With so many delicate beauties, how boring would it be for each of them to wear a camouflage protective clothing to exercise? Even if it was for the sake of being pleasing to the eyes, Wang Sheng had to take out the sportswear in his mind. Therefore, under Wang Sheng's description, the 2 female grandmasters first decided on the sweat-absorbing, breathable, and elastic fabric under Wang Sheng's request. Of course, the shoes were not left behind either. The female grandmaster leather craftsman also chose the material for the soles. She even considered the principle behind the air cushion that Wang Sheng had mentioned and wondered if it was possible to realize it. 2 beauties who were very good at drawing were chosen from the group of women. According to Wang Sheng's description, they first compared Mei Er's figure and drew a set of midriff-bearing singlet and crop pants that were very popular on Earth. They also added a pair of white sneakers that fit their feet. Of course, there was no shortage of sports socks. As soon as the picture was drawn, all the women blushed. Wouldn't that be too revealing? But this was designed by Master Ho. Everyone faintly looked forward to it. When could they wear it from Master Ho to see? This was only one type. Wang Sheng faced the women and the grandmasters and listed out the many sportswear styles that he had memorized in his mind. The 2 painting beauties kept recording, and then the women looked at the matching combinations. One by one, they blushed, were surprised, and looked forward to it. Just as Wang Sheng, Mei Er, and the women were enjoying a brand new sportswear concept, the emperor in the imperial city was still enduring it with red eyes. The rebels had basically been taken down, and the loopholes in the imperial city had been filled up bit by bit under the ideas of a few strategists. The empress had also returned safely. Logically speaking, the emperor should be able to sleep peacefully. However, until now, the emperor still could not fall asleep. It was not only the emperor who could not sleep, even the 3 great gods could not sleep. After the overall situation was settled, old eunuch Shun and steward Zhou personally led people to search for the traces left by Wang Sheng. More importantly, they had to figure out how Wang Sheng had managed to sneak into the imperial city's inner city. Chapter 784. If he couldn't figure out this problem, the Son of Heaven wouldn't be able to sleep. It wasn't that he was afraid of Wang Sheng. If it was only Wang Sheng, then it would be easy to solve. This was not the first or second time he had sat face-to-face with Wang Sheng, even when Steward Zhou wasn't around. If Wang Sheng wanted to kill the Son of Heaven, he didn't need to sneak into the inner city. The problem was if those who had ulterior motives against the Son of Heaven also knew how to enter the inner city, then wouldn't it be easy to sneak in? Even if the Son of Heaven was assured, could the 3 great consecrators be at ease? The fact that the second prince had brought his men and had already caused the 3 guardians to lose all face. Then, Wang Sheng's arrival had rubbed salt on their wounds. They were on the verge of losing all their face. Countless palace guards were checking every inch of the inner city of the imperial city where someone could have entered. However, after half a day, they found nothing. So many people, so many experts, including those on the Son of Heaven's side and those on the rebels' side, no one knew how Wang Sheng had entered the imperial city's inner city. Everyone was shocked. This time, They didn't focus on the entrance but searched the entire inner city. They were busy until nighttime. Finally, someone found traces left behind by Wang Sheng. The three great consecrators rushed over. It was a pond in the imperial garden. There was a shallow footprint with some dried water stains around it. "Where does this pond lead to?" Manager Li asked sternly. "Directly to the moat," a guard quickly replied, "but there are 3 water gates in the middle and a few miles long waterway. In addition, there's only 1 bridge on the waterway. There are people patrolling the bridge at all times. There are 6 water intake stations along the waterway, and all of them have sentries. Yesterday, we asked all of them and didn't find anyone in the water. Go check the water gates." Old Eunuch Shun grasped the key point and sent someone to investigate. No matter what everyone guessed, to enter the inner city, one must destroy the water gates. This must be investigated clearly. Old Eunuch Shun's instructions were correct. After a while, someone dived into the water to see the result and reported it. The water gate was indeed broken, and there was a big hole for people to enter. The 3 great reverends heaved a long sigh of relief when they got this result. At the very least, he knew how Wang Sheng had managed to sneak into the imperial city without anyone noticing. As for how Wang Sheng was able to pass through the long waterway without being noticed, that was another matter. Some of the better swimmers would probably be able to cross a longer waterway than this. Tianzi finally got the report and let out a sigh of relief. Then, he asked the 3 reverends, "How do we prevent others from entering through this waterway?" "There are a few ways." Head Steward Li was the best at this and immediately replied, "One is to reinforce the water gate and set up an array. Once someone touches the array, it will immediately sound the alarm." "Is there anything else?" Tianzi was very anxious and quickly asked. "Turn the water gate into the tiniest pipes, the kind that no man or beast can pass through." Manager Li knew that the Son of Heaven was anxious and quickly replied, "This way, we can connect to the water and prevent people from breaking in. Of course, we also need to add formations." That was a good idea. Tianzi also felt that it was reliable. The most extreme way is to fill up all the waterways and not leave any openings. Manager Li immediately said the best way to solve the problem once and for all. "What about the water in the palace?" Tianzi frowned. It was easy to fill up all the waterways, but the problem was that the palace definitely needed water. What should they do without a water source? "Dig a well." Manager Li said decisively, "Your Majesty's drinking water can be directly obtained from the best spring outside the city. Let's follow this method." Old Li go and arrange it. Tianzi thought about it and still made the most reassuring decision. Finally, he found the way Wang Sheng came in and also filled up the waterways. Tianzi finally felt that he could sleep in peace. However, before he could return to his bedroom, he suddenly realized another problem. At that time, the second prince used a formation to seal the entire inner city, especially the main hall, which was even more tightly sealed. How did Wang Sheng come in without anyone in Jingdong? Wang Sheng killed the old consecrator with 3 arrows. It was impossible for him to be on the second prince's side, and it was even more impossible for him to collude with the person controlling the formation. Then, how did Wang Sheng break the formation? The 3 consecrators had a bigger headache than the Son of Heaven. The formation had always been in operation, and it had never been interrupted, not only in the imperial city, but even in the Son of Heaven's courtyard. Wang Sheng entered the formation as if there was no one around, which made them speechless. The Son of Heaven could trust Wang Sheng, but the 3 consecrators couldn't trust anyone other than the Son of Heaven. If even the Son of Heaven dared to rebel, it would be normal for Wang Sheng to plot against the Son of Heaven. There were many things that needed to be taken care of, but no matter how hard they thought, they couldn't understand how Wang Sheng passed through the formation. If they didn't get an answer to this question, neither the Son of Heaven nor the 3 consecrators could sleep. After the matter was settled, the Son of Heaven, the ministers, and the 3 consecrators didn't sleep for another day. It wasn't until the Empress saw all of this and ran over to chase them away. She dragged the Son of Heaven to the palace and helped him lie on the bed before stopping. "Forget it! Forget it! The Son of Heaven waved at the three consecrators and said, "Go and rest. At most, I will ask Marquis Changsheng in 2 days." The three consecrators bowed and agreed. As they were about to leave, the Son of Heaven suddenly thought of something and said to Chief Steward Li, "Old Li, remind me tomorrow morning to confer Marquis Changsheng as Duke Changsheng." Everyone was stunned. The three consecrators suddenly remembered that when Wang Sheng appeared, the Son of Heaven and the second prince promised to fight for Wang Sheng. At that time, although they were fighting with the old consecrators, they could still hear the movements around them. Now that the Son of Heaven mentioned this matter, everyone could understand. With deep doubts and unwillingness, those who couldn't sleep also lay down and forced themselves to sleep. Finally, after a few days and nights of fighting, they didn't have to worry about sudden danger. Fatigue hit them, and they slowly fell asleep. With the Son of Heaven's sleep, the capital slowly restored its peace. Those who didn't know the truth thought that everything was over and they could sleep well. Those who knew the truth understood that the real bloody storm had just begun. This was just the control of the situation, and the real settlement had yet to begin. Among the officials of the imperial court, there were many who couldn't sleep in fear. They were afraid that their daily actions would be related to the second prince and the others. In the entire capital, other than those ordinary people who didn't know anything, there were only the 2 mansions of Wang Sheng that could really sleep. Chapter 785. Marquis. Chief Steward Li looked at Wang Sheng with a smile, and then casually stuffed an imperial edict into his hands. "No, it should be Duke Changsheng, Duke. Congratulations, Duke." Wang Sheng was interrupted by a few beauties in the beauty's den. Wang Sheng's training was quickly thrown into the bathroom to wash up and change into a brand new official robe. Then, he rushed back to the Marquis's mansion, saying that Chief Steward Li had personally come to the Marquis's mansion for an extremely important matter. Chief Steward Li had waited for a long time, and when he saw Wang Sheng, he only said this. He also knew that Wang Sheng would not be like other officials who kowtowed 3 times and 9 times before receiving the imperial edict, so he tactfully did not greet him with the complicated formalities and directly stuffed the imperial edict into his hands. Duke Changsheng had become Duke Changsheng. Did this have any meaning to Wang Sheng? At least in the eyes of Wang Sheng, it had no meaning. However, the people of Wang Sheng's residence were different. When the maids around them heard this, their faces immediately lit up with excitement. In the future, if word got out, they would be part of the Duke's residence. For no reason, their status would rise by a notch. "This is the important matter you said." Wang Sheng took the imperial edict and put it on the table without even looking at it. But Mayor next to him was a little dissatisfied. She picked it up happily, unfolded it, and read it carefully. When she saw the Emperor's seal on it, she smiled so much that her eyes could not be found. Chief Steward Li was a little hesitant. If Mayor was also here, some things would not be easy to say. However, Mayor was a very smart person, and her eyesight was now no worse than that of Chief Steward Li, who often served in the palace. She directly found an excuse and left the central hall, bringing along the surrounding maids, so that Wang Sheng and Chief Steward Li could talk without worry. Without others, Chief Steward Li was not so arrogant, and his posture was a little slack. But Wang Sheng also knew that no one else could hear their conversation now, so he was very relieved. "How many days have you not slept?" Wang Sheng asked Steward Li with a smile. Although Steward Li was in good spirits, the dark circles under his eyes couldn't be concealed at all. There was also a faint trace of worry in the depths of his eyes. "I can't sleep." Head Steward Li didn't keep Wang Sheng in suspense. With a bitter smile on his face, he said to Wang Sheng, "The inner city of the imperial city has been completely occupied. Not to mention this old servant. Even His Majesty can't sleep. Look at my mansion." Wang Sheng smiled and casually pointed at his current Marquis mansion. "No, it should be called Duke Changsheng Mansion now. There are so many people with ulterior motives in there, but I still sleep soundly." How could the human heart be guarded? If you're worried about this and can't sleep, then you're thinking too much. Chief Steward Li really wanted to say, how can your residence compare to the inner city of the imperial city? On the other hand, when he thought about it, everyone's life was equally important. From this perspective, he had no way of refuting Wang Sheng, because most of the people in the mansion with ulterior motive that Wang Sheng said were arranged by Chief Steward Li. We've already completely blocked the waterways, filled the canals, and dug a few wells in the palace. Chief Steward Li didn't talk to Wang Sheng about the matters in Wang Sheng's mansion. He minded his own business and talked about the measures taken in the inner city of the imperial palace. In Duke's opinion, is there anything else we should pay attention to? You're really fast. Wang Sheng chuckled. There's one thing that we need to pay special attention to. Duke, please speak. Wang Sheng spoke so solemnly and specially pointed out that it must be very important. Steward Li immediately pricked up his ears. I believe that you've already taken precautions against the wells being poisoned, Wang Sheng said, and Chief Steward Li nodded. Of course, they had to take precautions against the wells being poisoned. Although the emperor, the empress, and the imperial concubines drank water from the best spring outside, the ordinary servants and maids still had to drink water from the wells. How could they not take precautions? Then you must be careful. When you secretly execute the palace servants, don't throw them into the wells. If someone wants to commit suicide, it's best to keep them far away from the wells. Wang Sheng said seriously. Believe me, Chief Steward Li, you definitely won't be willing to drink tea with corpses soaked in it. How many souls were in the wells in the Forbidden City? Wang Sheng had heard of it countless times on Earth. It was hard to imagine those palace servants who still had to use the wells in the Forbidden City. How pitiful, since the emperor and the others still chose to dig wells. Then he had to remind them. Chief Steward Li didn't expect Wang Sheng's solemn reminder to be this. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. But thinking about it carefully, Wang Sheng's reminder might not be without reason. When he thought of someone jumping into the well or being thrown in, and he still had to drink the water that was drawn out, Chief Steward Li's mouth felt uncomfortable. No matter what, he must pay attention to this problem when he goes back. How do we improve the formation? Chief Steward Li didn't directly ask Wang Sheng how to enter the formation, but used this method of asking for advice. Formation? Wang Sheng raised his head and looked at Chief Steward Li with an inexplicable smile. Chief Steward Li looked at Wang Sheng very seriously and silently expressed his insistence. This question must be answered. Old Li, do you think that there is an invincible defensive technique in this world? Wang Sheng didn't answer directly but asked Chief Steward Li a question. This question was simple. Chief Steward Li directly shook his head. There is no such technique. No matter how powerful a defensive technique is, there will be a time when it can be broken. Then, is there a shield that can block any weapon in this world? Wang Sheng asked again. Impossible. Chief Steward Li still shook his head. There will always be a divine weapon that can break the shield. Yes. Wang Sheng nodded and suddenly asked, what about the formation? The formation is also. Chief Steward Li just said this sentence and immediately understood Wang Sheng's meaning. If it was just a defensive formation, there would be a day when it would be broken no matter how powerful it was. Understood. Chief Steward Li nodded and summarized Wang Sheng's meaning. The formation needs to be changed into an offensive formation. The imperial city's inner city shouldn't be a place where anyone can trespass. Even if it's carelessness, it can't be touched. Then they deserve to die. Change to the most powerful offensive formation. When it came to killing people, Chief Steward Li wasn't worse than anyone. He instantly thought of the direction that the formation should be adjusted. Thank you, Duke, for your guidance. Chief Steward Li cupped his hands at Wang Sheng and thanked him. After thanking him, he suddenly realized that this wasn't what he wanted to ask. His expression immediately changed, and it took a while for it to return to normal. Duke, if it is changed to an offensive formation, can anyone still come and go as they please? Chief Steward Li asked again from another angle. If this question isn't clarified, His Majesty still won't be able to sleep. This old servant and the others won't be able to sleep either. Chapter 786. Was he trying to force Wang Sheng to reveal his secret? Wang Sheng looked at Chief Steward Li with a smile and didn't say anything. "Duke, please enlighten me." Chief Steward Li cupped his hands again and invited Wang Sheng to speak. "Aren't you afraid that you won't be able to sleep after knowing the answer?" Wang Sheng asked Chief Steward Li with a mysterious smile. Chief Steward Li was stunned. If he couldn't sleep after knowing the answer, then there was only one possibility. Wang Sheng could still move freely in the formation. Was that possible? Of course it was. Chief Steward Li had never dared to underestimate Wang Sheng in any way. He was an old eunuch who had fought in the palace for decades and reached the position of one of the 3 great consecrators. He had never dared to underestimate anyone. This was the reason why he had his current position. "Maybe he can sleep?" Chief Steward Li forced a smile and said, unwilling to give up. Wang Sheng was a resourceful person. Maybe he was just bluffing? According to Chief Steward Li's understanding of Wang Sheng, including the investigation of Wang Sheng by the entire royal family, and the 3 great consecrators' close contact with Wang Sheng should be someone with very sharp senses. It wasn't strange for him to be able to sense the fluctuations of the formation. The key was that he could enter and exit the formation at will without alarming the formation itself. That was scary. Whether it was the emperor, the 3 great consecrators, or the guards of the imperial city, what they were most afraid of was Wang Sheng's final ability. As long as they were sure that Wang Sheng didn't have this ability, then everyone could rest easy. Otherwise, no one could stand to be on guard at all times. "Then tell the emperor that he can sleep in peace," Wang Sheng replied irresponsibly. "Consider a gift in return for raising my title." Chief Steward Li was overjoyed. He could rest easy now that Wang Sheng said that. But in the next moment, when he suddenly understood Wang Sheng's true meaning, he was stunned again. Wang Sheng only said that it was a gift to the Son of Heaven, so that the Son of Heaven could sleep in peace. Since it was a return gift, it was a polite greeting. Being polite meant saying something that made you happy. "Duke." Steward Li's old face had already turned into a withered flower. His face was filled with helplessness as he pleaded with Wang Sheng. "Please be merciful and give this old servant a quick death." Even Head Steward Li felt extremely uncomfortable guessing all the time. In any case, he would be stabbed if he stuck his head out, and he would also be stabbed if he shrank his head back. It was better for Wang Sheng to give a straightforward answer, so that everyone would not have to suffer so much. "Are you sure you're not afraid of not being able to sleep?" Wang Sheng looked at Steward Li's uncomfortable expression and asked with a smile. This was a blatant way of telling Manager Li that he definitely couldn't fall asleep. However, Head Steward Li had already steeled his heart. He just wanted a definite answer. He couldn't care less about anything else. Anyway, with Head Steward Li's knowledge and the knowledge of the other 2 consecrators, he only knew that Wang Sheng had such an ability. Anyway, Wang Sheng already had a super weapon that could threaten the entire royal family at any time. It was not a big deal to have another ability. If he couldn't sleep, then so be it. "Please enlighten me, Duke," Head Steward Li replied resolutely. "Yeah." Wang Sheng sighed and shook his head continuously. However, since Head Steward Li was so insistent, Wang Sheng didn't mind letting him know more. "Then you can open one eye when you sleep in the future." Hiss. After getting an affirmative answer from Wang Sheng, Head Steward Li sucked in a breath of cold air. At the same time, a formation stone appeared in his hand. Then, he activated it in front of Wang Sheng and enveloped himself in the formation. Then, he signaled Wang Sheng to make a move. It was a small formation, an offensive formation. Wang Sheng casually picked up a teacup lid and threw it over. The moment it touched the edge of the formation, bang, the teacup lid exploded into pieces. Head Steward Li made a gesture of invitation and stared at Wang Sheng without blinking. At the same time, he released his spirit chi and frantically tried to sense where Wang Sheng was. Wang Sheng made a move. He picked up the cup of tea in his hand and slowly took 2 sips. Then he calmly put it down. His movements looked very natural and relaxed, but Head Steward Li had already sensed that the spirit chi around Wang Sheng was fluctuating. Under Head Steward Li's attentive gaze, Wang Sheng gently clapped his hands and slowly stood up. He tidied up his robe and strolled toward head stewardly. Just now, the two of them were about 2 to 3 meters apart. Wang Sheng didn't walk very fast, but with such a close distance, it only took 2 steps for him to reach the edge of the formation. Head stewardly focused all his attention and observed Wang Sheng's movements, afraid that he would miss even the slightest detail. Especially when Wang Sheng came into contact with the formation, he was so nervous that his heart was about to hang in his throat. Wang Sheng's speed became slower and slower, and it looked like he was about to touch the formation. Head Steward Li's pupils almost expanded to the maximum as he watched Wang Sheng's body get closer and closer to the formation. No! While Head Steward Li was focused, he suddenly discovered a problem. Wang Sheng was already an arm's length away from him. If he raised his hand, he would be able to touch Head Steward Li. This distance was completely within the range of the formation. Shua! All the hair on Head Steward Li's body stood up. This was a sign of extreme nervousness. His face also revealed an expression of fear. How is this possible? How did Wang Sheng walk to his side, and how did he retreat? Head Steward Li couldn't remember at all. He only knew that the formation that he personally activated didn't have the slightest effect. It was like air. Whether it was Wang Sheng coming in or going out, it was like he didn't exist. This was also an offensive formation and not a defensive formation. One could imagine what kind of scene the defensive formation would have when it met Wang Sheng. At the same time, Head Steward Li also understood Steward Zhou's doubts. Why was the formation in the Emperor's courtyard fine, but the people inside were all dead? That's right. What was even more frightening was that Wang Sheng had brought the Empress and 2 of the Empress's maids through the formation without being discovered. Thinking of this, Head Steward Li even had the heart to kill Wang Sheng on the spot. If he could still bring people in and out of the formation, he was afraid that from now on, they would really have to sleep with one eye open. This isn't the ability of my soul. Wang Sheng looked at Head Steward Li and knew what he was thinking. He sat back on his original seat and said slowly, "This is just a very unique cultivation technique." "What cultivation technique?" Head Steward Li hurriedly asked. It was unknown how many thoughts were going through his mind. The Grand Supreme Lord Temple has a top-level cultivation technique called the 9 Secret Words incantation. Wang Sheng still replied slowly, "There aren't many people who cultivate it. Only those of the Qing generation are qualified to cultivate it." Hiss! At this moment, Head Steward Li had the heart to die. People of the Grand Supreme Lord Temple's Qing generation were qualified to cultivate it. How was that not a lot? Didn't that mean that there were at least more than 10 Qing generation experts who could freely enter and exit the formation? I have already warned the Emperor not to have any ideas about the Grand Supreme Lord Temple. Wang Sheng's tone turned cold. Go back and ask the Emperor, did he forget to give me an explanation? Chapter 787. Wang Sheng's tone was very impolite. If it was someone else, Manager Li would have turned him into a pile of meat with one punch. However, facing Wang Sheng, a junior whose cultivation was obviously inferior to him, Manager Li didn't even dare to extend his fist. If Wang Sheng was the only one with this extraordinary ability, Head Steward Li might have thought of ways to kill Wang Sheng outside of the capital city by any means necessary. The ability to freely enter and exit the formation was too heaven-defying. So heaven-defying that as long as someone knew it, there would be no safe place in the capital. But now, even if Manager Li was given 100 guts, he wouldn't dare to have this idea again. The top cultivation method of the Laojun Temple, the compulsory cultivation method of the Qing generation, what kind of terrifying concept was that? Killing Wang Sheng might be simple, it might be difficult, but after all, it was only a problem of one person. But over at the Laojun Temple, there could easily be dozens or even hundreds of old Taoist cultivators of the Qing generation. God knows how those pure, old Taoist cultivators could live so long. The Qing generation was 2 generations older than the current Grandmaster, so how could they still be alive and kicking? What was even more frightening was that above the Qing cohort, there was a terrifying expert of the Su cohort whose cultivation was unknown. The battle with the old consecrator made the three great consecrators understand the gap between the three of them and the real supermasters. 3 against 1. They could only fight evenly and couldn't move for 3 days and 3 nights. Although ordinary masters who claimed to be at the peak of the legendary realm were not worth mentioning in front of them, wasn't there a terrifying master like the old consecrator in this world? If ancestor Ling Su of the Laojun Temple was like the old consecrator, Manager Li couldn't imagine what the consequences would be if he angered the Laojun Temple. Did Wang Sheng warn the Son of Heaven? Manager Li wasn't present at the time and didn't know the details, but Manager Li absolutely believed that Wang Sheng wouldn't joke about this matter. At this moment, Manager Li's first thought was to go back and immediately report this matter to the Son of Heaven. No, if the Son of Heaven knew, he would probably live in fear for the rest of his life. The Laojun Monastery was located in the suburbs of the capital. It would only take a few hours for an expert to rush over from the Laojun Monastery. He couldn't let the Son of Heaven know that Wang Sheng really had this ability, and he couldn't let the Son of Heaven know that Laojun Taoist Temple had such a horrifying technique. In order to make the Son of Heaven feel at ease, perhaps only the 3 of them could bear this huge pressure in secret, so that the Son of Heaven could relax a little. Of course, if Wang Sheng wanted an explanation, Manager Li would inform the Emperor immediately. This was the same big case as the Second Prince's Rebellion. It was not difficult to give Wang Sheng a satisfactory explanation. It was nothing more than a head. Would the number of heads that would fall this time be any less? This old servant will report back to His Majesty so that His Majesty can sleep in peace. After making up his mind, Head Steward Li's hostility completely dissipated. He bowed his head to Wang Sheng and said, "This old servant will also urge His Majesty to give the Duke a satisfactory explanation as soon as possible." He even told Wang Sheng how to report to the Son of Heaven. It was obvious that he was completely convinced. This time, he told Wang Sheng because he wanted Wang Sheng to deceive the Son of Heaven together with him, so that the Son of Heaven would not be afraid. From this point of view, Manager Li was also loyal to the Son of Heaven. There is no need to be so nervous. Wang Sheng smiled, as if he didn't feel the murderous aura that suddenly emerged from Manager Li not long ago. He said with a smile, "Tell him what should be told. Hiding things is not what a loyal official should do. Believe me, the Son of Heaven knows how to sleep more peacefully." Manager Li lowered his head again. When he raised his head again, there was already a smile on his face. "Thank you for the reminder, Duke." It was this old servant who thought wrongly, right? Wang Sheng seemed to have thought of something and asked Manager Li, with Manager Li's cultivation, "What level should the 3 of you be at now? Legendary peak? Or what?" Now that they were talking about cultivation, it didn't involve any politics. It was fine as long as they didn't reveal the cultivation techniques of the 3 of them. It was just a level, so Manager Li didn't need to hide it. Based on what the 3 of us felt this time, I'm afraid this is the real legendary peak. Manager Li organized his words and said, "In the past, people thought that the legendary peak was just a joke. At most, it was the legendary late stage. Then according to Manager Li, what realm do you think the old consecrator is at?" Wang Sheng asked immediately. Manager Li was already mentally prepared for this question. When Wang Sheng asked them about the 3 realms, this was an inevitable question. Manager Li deliberated again and said with a little excitement and surprise, "I'm afraid the old consecrator has already surpassed that limit." Everyone knew that the limit was the legendary peak. At first, the 3 great consecrators thought that they had already cultivated to the legendary peak, but when they followed Wang Sheng into the core of the Place of Thousand Despair, they realized that their realm was actually not there yet. After continuing to improve, the 3 of them thought that their current cultivation was already the limit. But when they met the old consecrator, they found out that humans could actually break through this limit. How could this not make the 3 great consecrators excited? Originally, they thought that there was no path ahead, but suddenly a small path appeared. For experts of their realm, this was simply a great fortune. As long as they found the old consecrator's cultivation method, They might be able to break through that limit one day. If the old consecrator were to fight against those demonic beasts inside, what are the chances of him winning? Wang Sheng asked another question. This time, it did involve the super demonic beasts inside the core of the place of Thousand Despair. This question made Manager Li sink into deep thought. After a long time, Manager Li shook his head and said, I can't tell. Maybe he will be evenly matched. Maybe he won't be able to withstand a single blow. It's hard to say. Overall, Manager Li was still somewhat pessimistic. The best result was that they were evenly matched, which made Wang Sheng feel helpless. If those super demonic beasts were really unsealed, who could deal with them? Thank you for your advice, Duke. At this point, both parties basically had nothing else to ask, so Manager Li immediately took his leave. I leaked the top secret of the Lao Jun Temple. Wang Sheng said to Manager Li calmly, if I don't get some compensation, I can't explain myself. Please tell me, Duke. Manager Li, of course, understood the rules of the sect better than Wang Sheng. Of course, he knew that Wang Sheng had leaked the secret, and the Lao Jun Temple wouldn't let it go so easily. Find the old consecrator's cultivation method. Wang Sheng thought for a moment and ordered, make a copy. I will give it to the Lao Jun Temple. Consider it an exchange between both parties. Go find it. There must be traces left. It's impossible that you can't find it. Chapter 788. Steward Li might have thought of using the excuse of not being able to find it at the beginning, but Wang Sheng's words made him shut his mouth. This was something that must be found, or it could be exchanged with the top secret of the royal family. Give a fake one? Steward Li was not that stupid. The cultivation of the Lao Jun Temple's people was not much worse than the 3 old consecrators, and it was clear at a glance whether it was real or fake. If he gave a fake one and angered the Lao Jun Temple, imagine the dozens of legendary peak experts who could easily enter the formation. What kind of concept was that? At that time, it was not a matter of whether the emperor could sleep or not, but whether there was a place to sleep. Wang Sheng very politely personally sent Steward Li out of the Duke's mansion, and when he returned, the whole mansion was already boiling. The Marquis Changsheng became the Duke, and the Marquis became the Duke. Everyone in the mansion was proud. Mayor gave the order, and the whole mansion celebrated. After a while, not only the original Marquis's mansion became a lively sea, but even the prince's mansion on the other side was also filled with laughter. Everyone who saw Wang Sheng said, "Congratulations to the Duke! Congratulations to the Duke!" Compared with the tense atmosphere of the whole capital, perhaps Wang Sheng's place was the only place that was happy. Of course, there were actually many people who were equally happy. At least when the emperor was trapped in the main hall, the 2 princes and dozens of trusted ministers who were trapped with the emperor were very happy. However, even if they were happy, they did not dare to show it directly on their faces like Wang Sheng. The emperor was almost forced to abdicate by the rebellious ministers. Although in the end, the emperor was very lucky and the rebellious ministers were captured, they still had the opportunity to be promoted and get rich, but after all, they were in the imperial court and could not show it so obviously. But the smart people already knew to look at the wind. In just one day, the officials who visited the 2 princes and dozens of important ministers had lined up in an endless stream. Seeing that these people were going to have a meteoric rise if they did not add flowers to brocade at this time, when would they wait? Some were happy, some were sad. The meritorious officials were all overjoyed, but Chief Steward Li did not feel happy at all. He had a worried look on his face as he rushed to the inner city of the imperial city to see the emperor. After a hasty night's rest, the Son of Heaven had already woken up early in the morning to deal with government affairs while waiting for the news brought back by Manager Li. Head Steward Li had returned, but his unsightly expression had already explained everything. The Son of Heaven dismissed his attendants, leaving only the 3 great consecrators. Only then did Head Steward Li begin to report. In front of the emperor, Manager Li didn't hide anything. He told him everything that happened in Wang Sheng's mansion. He didn't even hide his intention to deceive the emperor. After he finished, he knelt down and asked for forgiveness. In terms of loyalty to the Son of Heaven, There was no one more outstanding than the three great reverends. Hearing that Wang Sheng could come and go freely within the range of the formation stone that managerly personally activated, the Son of Heaven and the other two consecrators' expressions changed. Oldly, you're just afraid that I'll be worried. I'll pardon you. The Son of Heaven was the calmest, and he was the first to recover. He let managerly get up first before thinking about the intention of Wang Sheng's words. Understand, after a while, the Son of Heaven's face revealed a smile. Seems like I can have a good sleep in the future. The three great reverends didn't react for a moment. How did the Son of Heaven suddenly figure it out? This wasn't the Son of Heaven pretending to be calm, but he was really relaxed. With their cultivation, they could clearly feel that the Son of Heaven's muscles had relaxed a lot. Looking at the three great reverends' confused expression, the Son of Heaven couldn't help but laugh. If there is one person who can threaten you, what will you do? The Son of Heaven asked the three of them. Think of a way to kill him. Manager Lee replied without hesitation. The other two also nodded at the same time. Everyone had the same thought. What if there are two or three people? The Son of Heaven asked again. Same. Manager Lee replied honestly. There was no difference between one person and two or three people. What if there are dozens or hundreds of people, and we can't kill them all? The Son of Heaven asked again. Then, Manager Lee suddenly didn't know what to say. Could this be what the Son of Heaven thought through? When there are too many lice, one won't bite. When there are too many debts, one won't worry. The Son of Heaven chuckled and said, Look at those ordinary people. When have they ever worried that they can't sleep because there are too many people who can kill them? In addition, other than Wang Sheng and Lao Junguan, is there no one else who can threaten me? Then, how can I sleep in the future? The three of them pondered and couldn't help but smile bitterly. This was really the truth. When there are too many people who can threaten you, what's the point of being on guard? Because if you can't sleep because of worry, aren't you as stupid as those who are worried that the sky will fall on you? Moreover, other than being able to quietly enter the formation, this group of experts from Lao Junguan wasn't much stronger than the vassal states. If you want to worry about the experts from Lao Junguan, you might as well worry about the vassal states bringing people to kill their way to the capital city. To the Son of Heaven, what's the difference? In the past, there were so many experts who could threaten the Son of Heaven and the royal family, but he could fall asleep. Now, there was just one more group, and it was an expected group. After that, the Son of Heaven couldn't sleep? My greatest reliance isn't some array formation, Yi Zichen said. The Son of Heaven said sincerely to his three consecrated experts, whether it's in the past or this crisis, I've always relied on you guys. As long as you are here, I will be safe and sound. What's there for me to worry about? Just a few simple words almost made the three imperial consecrators cry tears of gratitude. To be able to have such a reliance from the Son of Heaven. Even if they were smashed to pieces, it would be difficult to repay the Son of Heaven's kindness. I have to thank Duke Changsheng for letting me sleep peacefully. The Son of Heaven said with some emotion again, Old Zhou, go and find out who else participated in the matter of roping in Lao Junguan. First, find a batch of heads of the people who did the specific work and send them to Duke Changsheng. Tell him that when the latter is clear, the heads will also be sent over. Let them live for a few more days. The few that the Son of Heaven mentioned referred to the eldest prince and the fourth prince who were implicated by the second prince this time. They were the son of the Son of Heaven, but the Son of Heaven sentenced them to death without hesitation. There was no father and son in the Tian family. When these guys wanted to force the Son of Heaven to abdicate, they were already doomed to fail. This was the ending. Old Shun, go and find out how the old expert cultivated. The Son of Heaven then ordered, if you can find the cultivation method, study it carefully. Thinking of his hesitation at that time, and thinking of Wang Sheng's decisiveness at that time, the Son of Heaven was very helpless. How good would it be if the old expert was still alive and still loyal to me? Unfortunately, this was impossible. Without loyalty for decades, it was impossible for him to turn to me at the moment of failure. What a pity! The Son of Heaven sighed with infinite regret, but at the same time, there was a kind of joy. Finally, I can sleep peacefully. Chapter 789. In the afternoon after Manager Li's visit, the Chongqing Duke's residence received more than 20 heads. If the Grand Abidine was here, he would definitely recognize that one of them belonged to Mr. Liao. However, Wang Sheng wasn't interested in this. He didn't care who was targeting the Laojun Temple, as long as the Laojun Temple was prepared. So what if there were 10,000 people targeting the Laojun Temple? The head sent by the emperor was also an expression of his attitude. At the same time, he also sent a few words from Manager Li. He said that there were still a few people that needed to be interrogated. After the interrogation, their heads would be sent over again. After this incident, the royal family lost a super expert. This was an immeasurable loss. However, for the emperor, this rebellion made him more streamlined the royal team. At the same time, almost all the remaining people were tied to the emperor's chariot. The royal family finally didn't have to worry about internal constraints. They could focus on moving forward according to the emperor's plan. The emperor didn't hide the fact that he made Wang Sheng the Chongqing Duke. Instead, he announced it to the world. At the same time, the second prince and the two granduncles of the imperial clan court didn't hide the rebellion. It was also announced to the world, waiting for the execution. As soon as the news came out, the world was in an uproar again. Those who didn't have insight saw that the emperor had been killing in these years. The number of people killed was almost thousands, and the number of people who were sent as slaves exceeded 30 to 40,000. This was simply a fatuous ruler. However, the major vassal states weren't like those who didn't know anything. What they saw was that the cohesion of the royal family was rising, and the influence in various places had slowly spread. Compared with the past, it was easy to see the difference. A few years ago, who cared about the emperor and the court? It was not that the major families controlled their own territories. Everyone only heard about the 5 major families, 8 major families, and several secret sects in Warrior City. As for who the emperor was, no one knew. But now, when people talked about the capital, many people faintly yearned for it. Not only did they envy Qian Xinyuan and the capital's Runzi workshop, but they also envied Wang Sheng, who was born as a barbarian, for saving the emperor twice by chance. The first time, he got the title of Chongqing Duke, which was a hereditary marquis with a territory. The second time was even more enviable. He was actually conferred the title of Duke Chongsheng. Besides Marquis Song, there were only Marquis Tang, Marquis Xia, and Marquis Feng, who were conferred the title of Marquis a few months ago. Including Wang Sheng, there were 5 of them. But what did Wang Sheng do? Who didn't know how to rescue the emperor in the capital? If he were to join the emperor's city guards, he might even be able to enter the imperial army if he displayed his loyalty. At that time, he might even have the opportunity to be conferred the title of marquis. Tianzi is really bold. Although a few dukes and marquises coveted the emperor's power, they couldn't learn the emperor's methods. Sometimes, even though he was the king of a country, he would still be held back by the elders of his original clan. It was just that it used to be called the Council of Elders, and now it was called the Imperial Court of the Vassal States. Countless people in and out of the government envied Wang Sheng. Not only was he promoted, but he also earned a lot of money every day. What was even more infuriating was that he occupied hundreds of super beauties by himself. It wasn't that no one in the capital passed by the prince's mansion. Even if they only saw the beautiful guards on duty outside, they couldn't bear to leave. There were so many girls, but Wang Sheng had monopolized them all. At this moment, Wang Sheng, who occupied hundreds of beauties, was popularizing the concept of underwear to a large group of beauties, including Mayer, under the attentive and thoughtful service of several beauties. Of course, at the beginning, Wang Sheng definitely wouldn't directly make the incomparably sexy ones. He would first use the most common style with sportswear to let the girls slowly accept it. Although the girls liked to use the most sexy clothes to tease people, Wang Sheng wasn't sure if they could accept it all at once. It would be fine if he did it step by step. This kind of exercise can be relatively comfortable, and it's the same when fighting. Wang Sheng first let the 2 beautiful painters draw it first, and then explained, "Is there no underwear?" Seeing what Wang Sheng asked them to draw, the girls all blushed. Who could think of such a shameful thing? "There's no need," Wang Sheng replied with a smile. So, exposed. How can you wear out? Another relatively hot beauty next to him asked hesitantly, "Why don't you feel embarrassed when you lie next to me without wearing anything?" This beauty served Wang Sheng to sleep. So Wang Sheng smiled and teased. The other girls also felt funny, and they teased together, making the beauty ashamed. "That's different," the beauty hurriedly explained. "That's only for the Duke to see." "Then who do you think you will wear these for?" Wang Sheng smiled. "Women dress for the person they like. Of course, it's for the person you want to let see." Although Mei was also shy, her brain was more active. Looking at these things that Wang Sheng drew along the way, her heart suddenly moved. "Duke, is this the industry you will arrange for the sisters in the future? You can see it?" Wang Sheng gave Mei an approving look, which made Mei proud for a while. Only then did the girls realize that these shameful things that Master Ho drew turn out to be the foundation of their future career. They suddenly became serious and carefully pondered. With so many beautiful women, would they be afraid of not finding a suitable industry? In this society where the handicraft industry was not yet developed, Wang Sheng could arrange too many industries. Fitness and body shaping, this was one. This was a combined industry with Runzi Workshop's beauty and makeup, but it could be done separately. Some of the beauties and masters could be coaches. Of course, Wang Sheng would only launch high-end custom-made personal coaches, such as yoga, Shabin, all of them. After teaching a few, it could be promoted. Not only could it shape the body, but it could also be trained in high-end, ladylike etiquette, correct various bad habits, and make every action full of temptation. Women's ready-to-wear, this was definitely the most common industry in the world, no matter which world it was. This industry was so big that it was not a problem to have tens of thousands of beauties, let alone hundreds of beauties. Not to mention that every woman in the Wang Mansion was much more beautiful than the supermodels on Earth. Even if they didn't know anything, it was enough to be a model. Sportswear was only part of it. Wang Sheng would also introduce matching swimsuits. However, the most important thing was women's underwear. This was a huge cornucopia. Not to mention other things. Just look at how big the momentum of Victoria's Secret on Earth was every year. Wang Sheng couldn't copy it. Who knew what Victoria's Secret meant? Therefore, he could casually name it Queen's Secret or Imperial Concubine Secret and start promoting it among high-end women. It would definitely be as popular as cosmetics. Chapter 790. Since Mayer had asked, Wang Sheng no longer concealed it from the girls. He gathered Sister Tantai, Sister Rosa, and the others, and told them his entire plan. There would be another workshop next to Runzi Workshop, occupying a large area, which would be used to serve high-end women. Like Runzi Workshop, it would only be open to female customers, and only to Runzi Workshop's VIP customers. Fitness and body shaping, high-end custom-made personal trainers, and all kinds of sports clothes would be promoted first. Then there would be sexy underwear business for these high-end women. It should be known that these people who were willing to spend money were basically not short of money. A large number of them would definitely rely on their appearance and figure to be favored, and another group would be driven by the latest trends to consume. It could be said that the high-end customers of Runzi Workshop were all in one fell swoop. In addition, Wang Sheng would slowly release the concept of modern women's clothing on Earth bit by bit and constantly expand this industry. Among the girls, some would do management work. The rest would be high-end personal trainers, supermodels, and designers. Basically, in Wang Sheng's opinion, more than 600 beauties were not enough for such an arrangement. When the customers were only the high-end customers of Runzi Workshop, the girls would not be too tired, nor would they be too busy. Wang Sheng could also fulfill his promise. He didn't need to serve male customers, didn't need to be too tired, and only needed to dress himself up beautifully every day. As for the profit, would a man who was willing to spend tens of thousands of gold coins to buy a tube of lipstick, would he not be willing to spend tens of thousands of gold coins to learn from a high-end personal trainer to make his skin better? Would he not be willing to spend tens of thousands of gold coins to buy the latest and sexiest underwear to hook his man's heart? Would he not be willing to learn some pole dance or other dance that men couldn't stop? Would he not be willing to change his style every once in a while to keep his man always fresh. Casually calculating, this was an industry that could be comparable to the income of Runzi workshop. While the women were dumbfounded, they also admired the High Duke from the bottom of their hearts. Elder Sister Tantai, Elder Sister Rosa, the Hidden Hall should have some other methods to allow women to display their charm to the fullest, right? After Wang Sheng said that, he asked Tantai Yao and Sister Rosa, as long as the cultivation method isn't revealed, you can easily earn a lot of gold coins if you use it on outsiders. There are some unique massage detoxification techniques. Tantai Yao was amazed by Wang Sheng's idea. When she heard Wang Sheng's question, she quickly replied, it can make the skin of the woman being massaged become softer and whiter in a short time. Really? Before Wang Sheng could say anything, Mayer couldn't sit still anymore. Give it to me, begging for food with a golden bowl. After listening, Wang Sheng was stunned. He shook his head and sighed. Triumph Palace has such methods, but they still use the Hidden Hall to make money. They deserve to be poor. The girls had also taken turns to go to Runzi workshop these days. Of course, they knew how popular the whitening and tender skin products were. Wang Sheng's words made Tantai Yao a little speechless. Wasn't it reasonable? Casually taking out some of them could make them the richest, but the result was that they lived like a pitiful beggar. Some of the cultivation methods that are not so secretive can be taken out. Wang Sheng continued to suggest, do some group aerobics or something else. Not only can these high-end female customers enjoy the service, but it can also provide them with a social platform. All of them have status. Presumably, their families will be willing to let them come here to do some marriage diplomacy. Every once in a while, there will be an internal fashion show. Wang Sheng imagined the fashion industry on Earth and said with some regret, it's a pity that there aren't any experts who can draw people vividly. Otherwise, we could even launch fashion magazines. When that time comes, we would truly be leading the way in women's fashion. Everyone didn't understand what Wang Sheng regretted for the time being, but just these words were enough for the girls to digest for a long time. Especially the sexy fashion that Wang Sheng mentioned, the girls actually understood it in their hearts, but just thinking about it made them blush. But thinking about it, since they were willing to appear in front of Wang Sheng in this most sexy way, then other women would definitely be willing to appear in front of their lovers in private. Even as a model, at most, they would only appear in front of some female customers. They didn't have to face other stinky men, and they could still appear beautifully every day. It was simply a perfect job. Soon, the beauties in the Wang's mansion went crazy, and the pace of life suddenly accelerated. The next day, Wang Sheng saw at least 100 beauties wearing the first set of navel-bearing small vest, cropped pants, and sneakers designed by Wang Sheng, waiting for Wang Sheng to teach them how to use the fitness equipment. Looking at the girls in a variety of colors and styles of uniform and refreshing sports clothes, but also with that kind of complicated hair bun, Wang Sheng felt a burst of incongruity. Untie the hair bun and comb it into a ponytail. Wang Sheng couldn't help but ask the girls to put down those complicated hair bun and change it into the simplest ponytail. The girls were stunned for a while, but they didn't say much. According to the Duke's instructions, they untied the hair bun and turned it into the simplest ponytail style. This is much better. In front of Wang Sheng, there were 100 young and beautiful modern beauties, which was simply too eye-catching. Of course, the girls also saw the appearance of each other after the change, and they were very impressed with the Duke's aesthetic standards. Next, Wang Sheng began to act as a fitness coach, teaching the beauties how to use each kind of fitness equipment one by one, and explaining which muscles and which muscle groups were exercised by these equipment, and how to do the correct movements to avoid pulling or injuring the muscles and bones. He was very professional in teaching the beauties the warm-up before the exercise and stretching after the exercise. For Wang Sheng, this could be said to be the most basic common sense. However, for the girls, especially the beautiful experts, what Wang Sheng said simply made them dumbfounded. Almost all the muscles and muscle groups in the body could be trained, and every muscle could be fully stretched and exercised. Not to mention the shaping and whatnot. Just the degree of familiarity with the muscles alone, Even the combat experts of the Triumph Palace didn't have such a profound degree. How did the Duke know such a detailed structure of the body? Could it be that the Duke killed a lot of people and specially cut them open to see? Not to mention other things, just familiarizing with the structure of the human body can increase the destructive power of the battle by a few points, right? Chapter 791. Enjoy life. Don't always think about those things of fighting and killing. Wang Sheng was speechless about everything in this world that could be related to killing. He could only straighten his face and reprimand the women. Such beautiful and juicy beauties. You think about killing people all day long. Don't you think about it? All the women covered their mouths and snickered. At first glance, Wang Sheng was not really angry. These beauties present were all good at observing people's words and expressions, and they were even experts at acting coquettishly and pestering people. A few words of coquettish and soft words. A few words of coquettish Duke. Wang Sheng was so amused that he could no longer keep a straight face and burst out laughing. They all knew that Wang Sheng was good to them, so they played their little tricks incisively and vividly. If it weren't for Mei Er, it was estimated that a few of them would have stuck to Wang Sheng. However, the women's hearts were actually warm. They all respected and appreciated Wang Sheng's kindness, but since the women already wanted to help Wang Sheng in some ways, not to mention Wang Sheng saying a few words now, even if he was really angry and taught them a lesson, they would master this knowledge, then enhance their strength and become Wang Sheng's helper in some aspects. Soon, there was a fashionable beauty on each of the hundreds of fitness equipment. They practiced one after another according to the prescribed movements of the equipment. Don't keep practicing the same muscle group. Change the equipment every once in a while. Wang Sheng was like an instructor, standing in the middle and loudly counting down to the rhythm of everyone. Every time there were 10 movements, he would give the order, and the girls would change to a different equipment. This was a large gym, and there were a lot of mats on the ground. After the women were familiar with these equipment, Wang Sheng began to let Sister Rosa act as a model, demonstrating the non-equipment exercises on the mats. Every movement told everyone what they were practicing and what they consumed. Of course, while practicing, Wang Sheng did not forget to ask the girls to remember to use spiritual energy to cooperate. There is such a good thing as spiritual energy in this world. How could it be wasted? With the nourishment of spiritual energy, the muscles would be more powerful, but women would not have prominent lines like Wang Sheng, which was suitable for shaping the body. Wang Sheng wanted the women to teach others the skills that could seduce people. In addition to the moves of the hidden hall, Wang Sheng was basically looking for the kinds of fitness movements that could best highlight the advantages of the women's bodies. There were a few movements that raised the buttocks, puffed out the chest, and pressed the legs. Even the women around them blushed when they saw it. One could imagine how the men in this world would feel when they saw it. Unfortunately, this beautiful scene could only be enjoyed by Wang Sheng alone in the prince's mansion. No one else had the opportunity to enjoy it. In addition, although a set of sportswear was made, the underwear was not yet made, so it was not perfect. They could only wait for the things that had been drawn to be made one by one and put on the body for the women to feel. The two female grandmasters in charge of making the clothes and their disciples were so busy that they were going crazy. It was not enough to make a set for everyone in the prince's mansion. They had no choice but to discuss with Mayor and Sister Rose about how to expand the production. Since it had been decided to do a chain of high-end women's industry, everyone treated this matter as a normal business activity. Sister Rosa and more than a dozen beauties who had been learning in Qian Xingyuan and Runzi workshop for a period of time also began to discuss how to set up the shelves. Mayor directly allocated 50 million gold coins to the prince's mansion as the capital for Sister Rosa and the others. The women had already discussed that Sister Rosa would be responsible for all the things here. As for Tantai Yao, she would be a consultant and then live a comfortable life. The ready-made clothes definitely needed a large workshop. How long would it take for the two grandmasters and their disciples to make them by hand? They had to expand the scale and the production. They needed a large place and a group of clever and skillful women to make them continuously. Sister Rosa asked Wang Sheng's opinion. When Wang Sheng heard Sister Rosa talking about the problems they were facing now, he suddenly patted his thigh. He forgot to make the sewing machine. When the army carried forward the tradition of hard work and plain living, Wang Sheng had touched the sewing machine a lot, so he naturally knew the structure. Hearing that Wang Sheng wanted to make a special sewing machine, the two female grandmasters immediately chased after Wang Sheng and even invited their master, the great grandmaster of Linglong Pavilion. Therefore, Old Tai and others began to build according to Wang Sheng's instructions with great enthusiasm. The sewing machine didn't need any formation or spiritual energy. As long as there was a lathe, the axle could be made. Those delicate cams and so on were also hand-hammered out by Old Tai and others in 2 days. The wooden boards were the simplest, and the belts were replaced with some kind of tough leather. In less than 3 days, all the parts were made. It took half a day for Old Tai and others to assemble the sewing machine. Wang Sheng designed a kind of ancient pedal sewing machine. When not in use, the head of the machine could be placed in the wooden round belly of the workbench. It was placed there like a small table. Even though it was personally hammered out by Old Tai and others, they didn't know how to use it. The women couldn't wait to ask Wang Sheng to give them pointers. Under everyone's gaze, Wang Sheng, an incomparably strong man, sat in front of the sewing machine that was slightly smaller than Wang Sheng's. In front of everyone, he put down the reel, hung the thread, and threaded the needle. He also put down the reel, hung the thread, and hung the belt. Then, he took 2 pieces of cloth and put down the needle. His feet gently stepped on the pedal, and the needle began to move up and down. Hearing the uniform ta-ta-ta-ta sound and seeing the 2 pieces of cloth in Wang Sheng's hands being pushed up, everyone was dumbfounded. Wang Sheng didn't play too much. He just sewed a line. The first half was a bit crooked, but the second half was straight. This was a problem of craftsmanship, but it also indirectly showed that the sewing machine could sew curved in straight lines. Holding the 2 pieces of cloth that Wang Sheng sewed, the sewing great-grandmaster's eyes almost popped out. Such a uniform stitch and such a fast speed were simply beyond her imagination. She didn't dare to compare the speed, but the uniformity and fineness of the stitches alone was enough to be called a grandmaster. However, everyone knew that Wang Sheng knew nothing about sewing, so he relied on this thing called the sewing machine to achieve it. If you use this, you'll be faster. Wang Sheng smiled as he gave up his seat to the martial grandmaster. Then, he guided her to slowly get used to it and use it. After a while, the grandmaster could already sew a straight seam. This thing is actually needed by every family. It can also be used as a business. Wang Sheng said casually to Mayer, if it can be promoted in the future, there must be a sewing machine in the betrothal gifts of the groom. Chapter 792. Wang Sheng thought it was just a casual remark, because there was a time in China on Earth a few decades ago when a sewing machine was an essential item for every wedding and family. But when these words fell into Mayer's ears, it was completely different. If every married couple had to buy a sewing machine, then the kingdom's population of billions of people would mean that there would be billions of sewing machines sold. Even if they could only earn 1 gold coin from each sewing machine, it would still be the concept of billions of gold coins. Mayer immediately fell into a frenzy of thinking. How to produce, how to sell, and how to earn this astronomical figure of gold coins. Just as Mayer was thinking, the female grandmaster who was trying out the sewing machine had already drawn an exquisite pattern on a piece of cloth. As expected of a grandmaster, she was simply born proficient in sewing. She only needed to draw a straight line to get the hang of it. Next, the grandmaster directly drew a landscape painting with lines. Although the color was monotonous and the width of the lines was the same, everyone could tell at a glance that it was the work of a painting master from the previous dynasty. The female grandmaster completed it with 1 line and 1 stroke. She was an expert. No wonder she was a sewing grandmaster and Wang Sheng wasn't. Wang Sheng was someone who had touched a sewing machine on Earth. In front of the grandmaster's work for the first time, He was simply too ashamed to show his face. Compared to Wang Sheng's embarrassed expression on his work, the female grandmaster's face was simply astonished. Such a fast speed, such an easy tool to use, it was simply beyond their imagination. The two female grandmaster's disciples at the side were already dumbfounded. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. How was this possible? They had learned to sew from their masters since they were young, and it took them at least 5 years just to be able to make the fine and even stitches. Wang Sheng, a person who didn't seem to have any sewing skills, could actually design such an exquisite machine. If this machine was really popularized, how could they still call themselves sewing grandmasters? Grandmaster, can this speed up the sewing of clothes? Wang Sheng very sincerely asked the female grandmaster for advice. It's obvious. The female master laughed bitterly. In her heart, how could she not have the same thoughts as her two female disciples just now? However, she soon calmed down. A master was indeed a master. She began to look at the sewing machine from a professional perspective. Ordinary clothes can be made at least 10 or even 100 times faster, but that's only limited to the parts that can be sewn continuously. The female master stroked the smooth stitches and said quickly, "You can only use one color at a time. At most, you can use 2 different colors of thread from top to bottom. Every time you change the thread, you have to rethread the needle, which is slightly inconvenient. But if you repeat it a lot, it's a divine sewing tool." This evaluation was so high that it could even be called a divine artifact. On the other hand, Old Tai and the others, who had already created many of Wang Sheng's other items, were relatively indifferent. They had seen many powerful items, so they were not surprised. If it's some special material, like some leather, I'm afraid these won't be enough. As the female master guided one of her female disciples to try it out, she continued, "Ordinary needles can't pierce through the skin, so this definitely won't work. At the very least, you have to engrave an armor-breaking formation on it, and then use spiritual energy when you use it. This couldn't be bypassed. There must be some materials that ordinary needles couldn't pierce at all. So in the beginning, the master said that ordinary clothes could speed up the process. As for special materials, it depended on the formation on it. Anyway, the sewing machine had already been formed. How to add the formation was up to the formation master. There was no need for Wang Sheng to participate. "Master, see what other improvements can be made." Wang Sheng sincerely invited the female master to give her opinion and threw out another trump card. "Actually, there's another kind that can lock the edge. I also need master's help to take a look." Since there was already a sewing machine, how could he leave the sewing machine behind? Anyway, it was something that could speed up production. Taking it out at once would improve the efficiency of the girl's workshop. Lock the edge? As expected, the female master was interested. She didn't care about guiding her female disciple and let her explore it by herself. The master pulled Mr. Tai, Wang Sheng, and the others and began to talk about the sewing machine. The sewing machine was definitely more complicated than a single needle sewing machine. Wang Sheng had to explain for a long time before Mr. Tai and the others understood what Wang Sheng wanted, although they didn't understand the meaning of this thing. Looking at the female master's high-spirited expression, everyone knew that it must be another extraordinary thing. Meyer didn't wait for Wang Sheng to remind her again. She had automatically placed the sewing machine and the sewing machine at the same height. These two machines must be vigorously promoted. The only trouble was probably the production and manufacturing. The shell was easy to deal with, but the several delicate cams and rotating shafts inside could only be manufactured by masters who were at least at the guru level. Perhaps they needed to cooperate with the Linglong Pavilion. Go and talk with them. Wang Sheng listened to Meyer's meaning. He waved his hand and directly asked Meyer to go and fight for it. Anyway, Wang Sheng was also a hands-off boss. As long as he could stand firm, it would be enough to support Meyer. As for what conditions she could negotiate, it would depend on Meyer herself. If the sewing machine was included, it would be a huge market of at least tens of billions of gold coins. Meyer had to pay attention to it. At this time, the fitness lingerie business of the girls had long been forgotten by Meyer. It was such a small business. She'd better leave it to Sister Rosa. Little miser. Wang Sheng secretly evaluated Mayer in his heart, and then shook his head. He could finally be a little more free. Mayer was busy, and Sister Rosa and the girls also began to buy land and rebuild around the Runzi workshop. Everything could be said to be on the right track, and Wang Sheng did not have to worry so much. However, as soon as this idea arose, Steward Wang rushed in and reported to Wang Sheng that the Imperial Treasury had collected thousands of kinds of spring, lake, and river water from different places in the world, waiting for Wang Sheng to choose the most suitable one for winemaking. Well, staying in the beauty's nest every day, Wang Sheng also wanted to change his mind. After saying goodbye to Mayer, he went straight to the Imperial Treasury shop in the capital. Many kinds of water were needed to make the giant snake change. With the help of the Imperial Treasury, a big chain of shops all over the world, the efficiency was really much higher. After all, the most important thing in this world was cultivation, and it was better to concentrate on cultivation. Once the giant snake change was completed, it was equivalent to an 8-stage realm master. 8-stage realm could do a lot of things, such as being with Mayer, or going into the core of Thousand Despair again. There were many, many things worth looking forward to. Chapter 793. Wang Sheng had already chosen the venomous snake transformation as the next change of his source spirit, but for some reason, up until now, Wang Sheng's source spirit had not shown the conditions for the venomous snake transformation and had been maintaining the shape of a Chionyo, which made Wang Sheng very puzzled. This was a situation that had never happened before. From the time Wang Sheng completed the Chionyo transformation to now, it had been a few months, and there was no change in his source spirit. If it wasn't for Wang Sheng's strong confidence in himself, always believing that he could complete all the Dragon Child transformations along the way, other people would definitely think that his cultivation had reached the end. Even if it was inferred from Wang Sheng's source spirit that could be upgraded, one could also come to this conclusion. After all, although Wang Sheng's source spirit could be upgraded, it was at best 1 out of 100 source spirits, just an unranked remnant spirit. To be able to rise from unranked to the 7th-stage realm, it should be considered that his potential had been exhausted, right? Unfortunately, other people were not Wang Sheng. They did not know that Wang Sheng's source spirit had never been upgraded because of the inherent upgrade attribute, but because of Wang Sheng's strong self-confidence and belief that man could conquer nature. It was the same now. Wang Sheng firmly believed that his source spirit would definitely be able to upgrade and complete the venomous snake transformation. Marquis Lu Wenho was not in the capital. This was understandable. The branches all over the world needed to be taken care of. How could Marquis Lu Wenho stay in the capital like Wang Sheng? But this did not prevent the Imperial Treasure House's branch in the capital from treating Wang Sheng like a master. One had to know that Wang Sheng was now a duke personally conferred by the emperor and was also a distinguished guest of the Imperial Treasure House. As long as the branch's shopkeeper's head was not filled with water, he would definitely treat Wang Sheng like Marquis Lu Wenho. When Wang Sheng was notified, the capital's branch was actually already prepared. A quiet courtyard had been specially tidied up. It was exceptionally clean, and there were 4 to 5 beauties who had washed themselves thoroughly. There was not a single bit of makeup or perfume on their bodies. They were ready to bring water to Wang Sheng to taste at any time. Even the person in charge of recording was a clean and elegant beauty. The manager in the capital had never thought of using a honey trap to win over Wang Sheng. Everyone knew that Wang Sheng had more than 600 super beauties in his residence. Wang Sheng was practically living with the beauties, who would find trouble for themselves. Everything is ready. High Duke. The capital shopkeeper personally waited on Wang Sheng to come to this courtyard. Then he showed Wang Sheng the neat and tidy courtyard and asked Wang Sheng, "Duke, is there anything else you need?" "No more." Wang Sheng nodded. The shopkeeper had done a good job. It suited Wang Sheng's taste very well. "Very good. Let's begin." The water that was brought from all over the country was sent to the courtyard one by one according to the serial number, and the beautiful woman in charge took over. First, she observed the purity of the transparent color to see if there was any precipitation. Then, she filtered it with several layers of the finest gauze, then scooped it with the cleanest, purest white cup and brought it to Wang Sheng. Wang Sheng sat under a big tree in the courtyard. It was neither hot nor cold. There was a very comfortable cushion and a low table under the tree. Wang Sheng leaned against the tree trunk. Every time a cup of water was brought over, Wang Sheng would first carefully observe it. These water were all taken from the water source at noon. After the water was taken, it was sealed and transported to the capital in a storage ring. The storage ring could basically guarantee that the water quality would not deteriorate. Even if it was transported to the capital, the water quality would not be affected. Smelling it, there was almost no smell. This was very normal. If he could smell something, then there must be something wrong with it. It was normal that there was no smell under Wang Sheng's nose. After taking a small sip, Wang Sheng just touched the tip of his tongue and directly shook his head. Looking at the girl in charge of recording, she directly put a cross on the back of the water. Next was another one. Wang Sheng followed the same process, first looking, then smelling, then finally tasting. Basically, after tasting it, he directly shook his head. Occasionally, there would be one or two that Wang Sheng would taste one or two times. At this time, the girl in charge of recording would write down the number of the water. While tasting the water, Wang Sheng was constantly monitoring the changes in his source spirit space. The first 100 or 200 kinds of water from all over the country did not cause any obvious changes in his source spirit space. But Wang Sheng did not give up. He firmly believed that the change was related to the water. Finally, when it was 300 or 400 kinds of water, Wang Sheng felt a slight change in his source spirit space. In Wang Sheng's source spirit space, there seemed to be a little bit of fog. Because the fog was too thin, he couldn't see it at first. Now that it had accumulated this much, he could finally see a little bit of a faint shadow. When his source spirit changed in the past, he was always wrapped in a thick fog and couldn't see anything. Now that there was a faint fog, what did it mean? At least it meant that Wang Sheng's path was not wrong. Now he just had to wait for the fog to condense enough before he could see the clues. The girl in charge of recording did not understand why Wang Sheng was smiling. He had just rejected the cup of water in his hand. Clearly shaking his head was not in accordance with the requirements. But why was the Duke smiling so happily? Puzzled, the beautiful girl could only firmly write down the number of the water and make a special note. The Duke held the cup of water and smiled for a while. Following this, Wang Sheng no longer paid attention to his source spirit space. Even if there was a change, it would be a long process. It could not be done overnight. As long as he paid attention to it every once in a while, it would be fine. Now, he just had to focus on tasting the water. To be honest, the taste of the water in other people's mouths was not much different, but on the tip of Wang Sheng's tongue, there were thousands of differences. At the very least, the ones that Wang Sheng had nodded to were close to the sweetest and purest natural mineral water, which complemented a few types of alcohol. However, not every suitable taste could be used as a source of wine. The key was the amount of water. If the water was good, but the amount of water was very little, it would be meaningless. So Wang Sheng basically found all the suitable ones and then carefully selected them from the rough selection. After a full 5 days, Wang Sheng finally went through the thousands of types of water. He picked out over 100 that he felt were suitable for now and only needed to be selected further. After experiencing the baptism of thousands of types of water, Wang Sheng's source spirit space finally reached a qualitative change. A thick fog tightly wrapped around Chunyo's source spirit. It was unknown what kind of change was happening. However, at this moment, Wang Sheng did not feel like he was going to level up. It was very strange. If he wanted to know the answer, he could only wait for the fog to disperse. Chapter 794. The thick fog did not disperse for a long time, and Wang Sheng did not have the patience to continue waiting here. He told the beauty in charge of recording that he had to go back and rest for a day or two before coming back to pick again. The beauty did not dare to do anything and just stood up to send Wang Sheng off. While Mayer was negotiating with the Pavilion of Delicacy, Sister Rose and a group of beauties were spending gold coins to buy a square next to the moisturizing workshop, preparing to rebuild it for business. The Royal Theatre was in the final stages of its interior renovation, and the band led by Master Yu was getting more and more proficient in their practice. They were only waiting for the theater to be ready to perform. When Wang Sheng returned to the Wang mansion, most of the women had been cultivating in the mansion. However, what Wang Sheng saw now was that most of the women were gathered in the gym. Some of them were practicing with equipment, some were doing gymnastics, and some were doing yoga. In any case, a group of young and beautiful modern beauties were competing with each other. All kinds of beautiful and sexy postures made Wang Sheng dizzy. The clothing workshop had also been set up. The two female grandmasters had participated in the shares, and elder sister Rosa had invested the majority. There was no time to do anything else, only enough time to make a set of sportswear and sports socks for everyone. Even underwear was not on the agenda. Seeing Wang Sheng, naturally, there were beauties who came over to serve him. After being busy for a while, Wang Sheng wore the fish-skin diving suit that he had used that night and lay flat on the water, quietly feeling the changes in his source spirit space. Perhaps it was because his body was surrounded by water, but the thick fog in his source spirit space seemed to have begun to surge. Wang Sheng did not take the initiative to affect it. His consciousness was immersed in his source spirit space, together with the little people with battle awareness not far away. He quietly watched. In the midst of the surging, some corner things also appeared. As Wang Sheng expected, this was not the posture of advancing, but rather the basic form of a snake transformation. It didn't make Wang Sheng wait for a long time. At least Wang Sheng's consciousness was immersed in his source spirit space, so he didn't feel that time was passing very slowly. Anyway, he kept looking and looking. The thick fog slowly revealed more and more, until the thick fog dissipated. It was all very logical. It had a small, flat dragon head and a pair of horns on its head. Its body was similar to that of a lion, and it had a long, thin tail. Its limbs and tail were covered in scales, which looked like dragon scales. This was the image of the swallow viper. At this moment, the translucent soul swallow viper was lying on the side of a pool in the source spirit space, swallowing the thick fog in the pool. The thick fog that was previously wrapped around the soul had already been gathered in this huge pool. When the soul essence venomous viper took a deep breath, a large mass of fog would enter its body, and when it exhaled, another mass of fog would come out of its mouth. However, under Wang Sheng's careful observation, he found that every time the Ba Wei breathed in and out, its body would become a little more colorful than before. This situation was similar to the beginning of the carp's source spirit's change. First it outlined the shape, then it turned a little golden, and finally it became bigger. The Ba Wei should also be like this, filling the color bit by bit. When the body of the Ba Wei was completely filled with color, it was estimated that the Ba Wei transformation would be completed. At this point, Wang Sheng understood the conditions for the Ba Wei transformation to be completed. However, Wang Sheng still did not understand how to make the Ba Wei more and more colors. Could it be by relying on the fog in the pool? If that was the case, Wang Sheng believed that he would not have too many chances. It must be known that the Imperial Treasure House searched the world and was able to collect thousands of water sources, which was already quite good. Even if he personally went out, it was estimated that he would not be able to collect more. Moreover, different kinds of water sources only made Wang Sheng's source spirit have the possibility of the Ba Wei transformation. Was the condition for the advancement not actually to collect more water sources? Puzzled, Wang Sheng simply ignored it, and his consciousness returned to his body. Leaving the source spirit space, when he opened his eyes, Wang Sheng found that the sky was completely dark. There were several beauties waiting around the pool. There were also several beauties in the pool around Wang Sheng, soaking in the water, as if waiting to be rescued at any time. Fortunately, when Wang Sheng made this pool, it was a warm water pool. Otherwise, it would definitely be very uncomfortable. The Duke is awake. As soon as they saw Wang Sheng wake up, the several women in the pool immediately noticed and immediately shouted happily. "You've worked hard." Wang Sheng smiled at the women in the water. and did not say anything else. He just urged the women to hurry ashore and climbed up to the edge of the pool. Several beauties waiting above immediately came over with dry towels to help Wang Sheng wipe him up and down. They had only just helped Wang Sheng to his seat when the other side brought over a sumptuous meal. Wang Sheng did not have to do anything and could enjoy a life where he could stretch out his hand and open his mouth. The Duke has cultivated for 12 hours. The beauties serving Wang Sheng told Wang Sheng that they had already rotated 3 shifts and were afraid that someone would not notice it for a long time. Looking at the sky, he knew that he had spent a lot of time. But this time it was worth it. He finally began to accumulate the snake transformation, which was much better than before when he didn't even know his goal. The reason why he stayed in the capital for a long time, in addition to taking care of the emotions of all parties, was because of this. Now it was still a bit lacking. He did not know what kind of accumulation was needed for the snake transformation. Once he knew all this, Wang Sheng could go outside with peace of mind. After eating, he took a short break and returned to the palace with the women. Wang Sheng had a good sleep and then woke up according to his previous biological clock, cultivating and exercising. Spiritual energy circulated through all the acupuncture points for a weekday. Cultivating the scripture of Tao scripture, maintaining tranquil cultivation method for 9 weekday was a complete cultivation process. After cultivating the scripture of Tao scripture, maintaining tranquil cultivation method once in the morning, Wang Sheng once again observed his source spirit space, and all his questions were immediately answered. After cultivating the scripture of Tao scripture, maintaining tranquil cultivation method once, the source spirit space would release a thick fog into the pool. When the snake transformation breathed in the fog, the color of its body would increase a bit. Speaking of which, the real condition for the snake transformation was actually the crazy increase of spiritual energy. For Wang Sheng, this was much easier than searching through thousands of mountains and tens of thousands of rivers. He did not need to run around. He just needed to spend some time cultivating. Now that he had a direction, what was he waiting for? Wang Sheng used to cultivate at most twice a day, 1 in the morning and 1 in the evening. But now that he knew the conditions, Wang Sheng did not even think about it and added 1 more time at noon and 1 more time at midnight. However, when he was fully focused on his cultivation, Wang Sheng did not forget to take care of the important matters at hand and let Mayer prepare some elixirs. If it was just increasing spiritual energy, then taking some elixirs that could increase spiritual energy might be useful. Chapter 795. Wang Sheng took the initiative to go to the imperial treasure house again. With the help of the shopkeeper and 2 beautiful women who were responsible for recording, he went through the hundreds of spring water that had been selected. This time, Wang Sheng did not start first. The shopkeeper in the capital personally removed those that did not have enough water. In the future, when large-scale production was needed, water sources with insufficient water would be directly eliminated. No matter how good the taste was, it was useless. Of course, if these were really the best, maybe they could be used to brew some limited edition treasures. But this depended on Wang Sheng. Unless it was the kind that Wang Sheng strongly recommended, it was better to let nature take its course. This was a cooperation, and Wang Sheng also attached great importance to it. After a day's rest, there were also some signs of the change. He was in a good mood, and when tasting the water, he became more and more serious. It did not take long for Wang Sheng to select 10 of them. There were 3 suitable for brewing beer, which could brew different light or heavy beer. The remaining 7 were suitable for brewing Wuliangye and Erguo. Each corresponded to a different degree, so it was easy to assign. The shopkeeper in the capital personally sealed the results of Wang Sheng's tasting, and then sent it to Xing City via messenger bird. The location of these springs would soon be bought by the Imperial Treasure House in the following days. Even if they had to pay a high price, it would definitely be done. As for whether the owner of the land would be willing to sell it, this problem was actually very, very easy to solve and understand. One had to know that this wine business was a cooperation between 3 parties. One was the Imperial Treasure House, one was Wang Sheng, and the last one was the city lord of worry-free city. The business that the city lord of worry-free city wanted to do needed to use a piece of land and spring water. Would there really be such a persistent person who would insist that his own land was not for sale? Unless this land was in the palace or capital of a certain vassal state. Obviously, it was not. The spring water selected by Wang Sheng were basically in some remote areas where there was not much human activity, so it could maintain a natural and fresh taste. If there were really people in these places who could not accept the face of the city lord of worry-free city, it was estimated that this land would not be sold, because it would soon become ownerless. As long as the owner of the land wasn't stupid, he would know that if he lost his life, no amount of gold would mean anything. Wang Sheng had specifically warned that all the water sources must be completely controlled and strictly managed. Nothing must be allowed to pollute them. Although he didn't know what Wang Sheng meant by pollution, he knew that the wine had to be drunk and the spring water had to be kept abnormally clean. In any case, as long as the spring water was firmly surrounded according to the highest standards and ordinary people couldn't get close, it was more or less enough. In terms of production, Wang Sheng didn't have many suggestions, but in terms of sales, Wang Sheng specifically stipulated that a batch of high-grade porcelain bottles must be custom-made. All the porcelain bottles had to be exactly the same so that people could tell at a glance that they were of high quality. Even for the sake of anti-counterfeiting, Wang Sheng asked the Imperial Treasure House to protect the bottles together with the wine with a formation. Once it was opened, it could not be sealed again. This was to prevent the trick of using an empty bottle to store inferior wine to deceive people. Regarding this, the shopkeeper patted his chest as a guarantee. Although the cost would increase a lot, this part would be passed on to the consumers, and it would not affect the profits of the Imperial Treasure House. As for those who might appear to be counterfeiters, this aspect would be handed over to the Lord of Worry-Free City. Exchange code U4AFYY. In this world, those who dared to counterfeit the Lord of Worry-Free City would not be easily punished with a few gold coins and a few days of imprisonment. It was a matter of being beheaded. He believed that as long as people were not stupid, they would know the consequences of counterfeiting. Relatively speaking, in a society ruled by law on earth, there were many cases of counterfeiting and selling fake goods that could not be restrained. The light punishment also made the cost of counterfeiting incredibly low. If the cost of crime was too low, it would inevitably lead to the proliferation of crime. The real wine of the Imperial Treasure House had not yet officially started production. Those brewed before were just works for trial, products used to train winemakers, but the taste had already made all the high-level people in the Imperial Treasure House who were qualified to come into contact with it praise. If such a good wine was put on the market, would there still be a way for other people to survive? Fortunately, the Imperial Treasure House was also good at doing business. From the beginning, they announced that the production was limited. This could be regarded as a reassurance to other brewer peers. No matter how good things were, the production was limited, so they could only go to the high-end market. It was impossible to take over the whole market. They could not make a lot of money, so it was better to honestly do their own small business. Because of this, in the wine market, few people would boycott the Imperial Treasure House, and many people had even begun to learn to brew beer. The current beer market was so huge that the Imperial Treasure House alone could not satisfy it. Who didn't want to take the opportunity to enter the beer market and get a piece of the pie? How the Imperial Treasure House operated, Wang Sheng did not care. He was now a hands-off shopkeeper. He only came up with ideas and techniques, and then waited for the dividends. What the Imperial Treasure House did was their business. He believed that with LV Wonho's mind and control, he would never lose control like what happened to Qingyu Hall. In the near future, I will leave the capital for a trip to the land of thousand despair. If there is anything, either tell me as soon as possible or wait for me to come back. Before Wang Sheng left, he gave an order to the shopkeeper of the capital branch, and then turned back to the Duke's mansion. Almost immediately after, the shopkeeper of the Imperial Treasury's branch in the capital spread the news. As a shopkeeper of the Imperial Treasure House in the capital, how could he not understand the meaning of Wang Sheng's words? It was clear that he was using his mouth to spread the news. The reason why Wang Sheng returned to the Duke's mansion instead of the Prince's mansion was because he knew that, as soon as the news spread, someone would come to visit and inquire about Wang Sheng's purpose in entering the Land of Thousand Despair. Of course, there was no shortage of people who would think about whether they could cooperate with Wang Sheng once. As Wang Sheng expected, less than half a day after Wang Sheng returned to the Duke's mansion, the representatives of the major vassal states had already come to visit. Everyone's purpose was also as Wang Sheng expected. They asked Wang Sheng's purpose and revealed their willingness to cooperate. Have the bases been built? Wang Sheng did not meet with each family alone. Instead, he met with the representatives of all parties in the middle of the Duke's mansion's main hall. Now that Wang Sheng was a hereditary duke, he was absolutely qualified to use the word receive. After all, the representatives of those vassal states, their kings were at most equal to Wang Sheng's title. Hearing Wang Sheng's question, all parties shook their heads. There was no other way. The construction of the base in the Land of Thousand Despair was not led by Wang Sheng. How could the efficiency be so high? If it's not built, then everyone should focus on building the base first. Don't be distracted. Wang Sheng smiled and rejected the suggestion of cooperation from all parties. This time, I'm just going to explore the way. It's more convenient to go alone and see if I can draw a detailed map. Chapter 796. Wang Sheng actually wanted to draw a map? Everyone was stunned for a moment before their expressions turned into one of ecstasy. Wang Sheng could walk around the outskirts of the grounds of Thousand Extremities with his eyes closed. Was there a need for a map? Of course not. Then, was there a need to say where Wang Sheng wanted to draw a map of the grounds of Thousand Extremities? It was obviously the core area of the grounds of Thousand Extremities. Why did the various families want to build their bases in the grounds of Thousand Extremities? Wasn't it because it could stimulate cultivation? Wasn't it because everyone coveted the core area of the grounds of Thousand Extremities? But everyone knew that the core area of the grounds of Thousand Extremities was extremely dangerous. The beasts inside were so powerful that they made people feel despair. Not to mention the various powerful and mysterious formations that were spread throughout the area. Who knew what kind of strange effects an old thing from 500 years ago would have? If they didn't figure this out, whoever entered the core area of the grounds of Thousand Extremities would die. Of course, everyone was happy that Wang Sheng was willing to draw a map. Based on their previous dealings with Wang Sheng, if Wang Sheng was able to draw a map, he would definitely sell it. It was just a little more expensive, but to the feudal vassals, this wasn't a big deal. As long as everyone waited patiently for Wang Sheng to finish drawing the map, they would be able to obtain the complete map with a large sum of gold coins. This was much easier than sending their own descendants to risk their lives and lose hundreds of people in order to obtain the map. It was also safe enough. Anyone who didn't want to do this would be a fool. The various representatives happily left. The smart ones quickly prepared the gold coins, while the dumb ones sent messages to the various kings via messenger birds. However, the representatives of the Shur and Gon families consciously took a few steps back. When almost everyone else had left, the two of them returned to the Duke's mansion's living room. As expected, Wang Sheng was sitting and waiting, as if he knew that the two of them would return. Everyone else's tea had already been removed, but the two of them were still sitting in their seats. Duke, the two of them bowed respectfully to Wang Sheng. When these fellows were arrogant, they could even ignore the emperor. But in front of Wang Sheng, they wouldn't dare to be arrogant, even if they were 10 times more courageous. After sitting down again, the two of them looked outside with flickering eyes, as if they wanted to confirm whether the guards were there or not. There's no need to look. They're all 20 zhang away. Wang Sheng knew what they were thinking just by looking at their expressions. If you're worried, you can open the formation yourself. The two representatives did not hold back at all. The representative from the Shur clan took out an array stone and hurriedly activated it. A soundproof array formation enveloped the three of them. Lord Duke, wouldn't the location of the exceptional treasures be exposed once you reveal this map?" The Gan family representative asked in an extremely urgent manner. As a representative in the capital, he knew some things. This trip might not be so smooth. If we're fast, the map will be ready in about half a year. Wang Sheng had already considered this problem. In addition to the previous 1.5 years, if the 10 experts at the peak of the legendary realm from your two families can't dig out the peerless treasures inside, how long do you think the other families will give you? Both of them were silent. In fact, they knew very well that with the completion of the construction of the various bases, there was less and less time left for them. Even if Wang Sheng did not mention about this map, they would not be able to keep the secret inside for long. Half a year's time was actually the limit. The reason why Wang Sheng said this was because he was stuck at this point. "I'm just drawing a map. I won't indicate the location of the peerless treasures," Wang Sheng continued. "It's not big, but it's not small either. It's about 150 kilometers in radius. 10 people can hide within 150 kilometers. If even your experts at the peak of the legendary realm can be discovered, then I have nothing to say." Although Wang Sheng said that he had nothing to say, the two representatives from the Shi clan and the Gan clan were really speechless. In the end, the representative from the Shi clan could only say in a negotiating tone, "Lord Duke, the Peerless Treasure Map is originally a map. If you were to draw a complete map, it would definitely include the contents of the Peerless Treasure Map. What do you think? That's easy." Wang Sheng did not deny that he would not use the contents of the map. He directly waved his hand. "When selling the map, your two clans will sell it at half the price of the other clans." The representatives of the two clans could not say anything else. They had given them time and the price. If they still did not know what was good for them, Wang Sheng would definitely let them know what it felt like to have the camp in the land of 1,000 despair. Suddenly, all the people inside suddenly die. After sending off the representatives of the two clans, Wang Sheng did not say anything else and returned to the practice room to continue cultivating. The amount of spiritual energy required for the snake transformation was not small. It required Wang Sheng to cultivate crazily. Mayer came back and once again brought a nature pill for Wang Sheng. Wang Sheng also had the intention to test whether the spiritual energy in the pill would have an effect on his soul. He took the pill and stuffed it into his mouth without hesitation. The huge amount of medicinal energy turned into spiritual energy. After circulating in Wang Sheng's body, it rushed into Wang Sheng's soul space. Wang Sheng's consciousness was always monitoring everything. Unfortunately, he did not know if it was because Wang Sheng had eaten too many nature pills before that his body had adapted to it. Most of the spiritual energy was absorbed by his body. The spiritual energy that rushed in only formed a thick fog that was about the same size as when Wang Sheng cultivated the Tao scriptures guarding tranquility cultivation method. It rushed into the pool of his soul space. There was an effect, but compared to the huge cost of the nature pill, this effect was not worth it. Wang Sheng did not give up and changed to another pill that he had not eaten before. After eating it, the effect was the same. The amount that could be absorbed by his soul was just a little bit. It was really pitiful. It seemed that he still needed to honestly cultivate to improve. These unorthodox methods were not very practical. Why did he want to go to the core of the land of 1,000 despair at this time? It was to at least double the speed of cultivating there. It must be known that the spiritual energy there was abundant, and there were all kinds of dangerous pressures. It was definitely the best place to stimulate one's cultivation. Exchange code 8DZ57. After giving instructions to the women in the Duke's mansion, he accompanied Mayer and stayed in the Duke's mansion for the whole day. He hugged Mayer and rested for the night. Early the next morning, Wang Sheng quietly got up and left the Duke's mansion alone. He rushed to the city gate when it opened and leisurely left the capital city. No one followed him. Knowing that Wang Sheng wanted to enter the land of 1,000 despair, no one dared to easily investigate his whereabouts in the land of 1,000 despair. Wang Sheng was able to enter the land of 1,000 despair easily. Although he said that he would not disturb anyone in the land of 1,000 despair, Wang Sheng still went straight to the underground palace. Wang Sheng definitely had to take care of the Laojun Temple's territory. Moreover, This time he wanted to enter the core of the land of 1,000 despair with the old Taoist Ling Su. With the old Taoist around, Wang Sheng could see more and get pointers on his cultivation. Chapter 797. Ever since Wang Sheng completed the Qinyo transformation, his cultivation had improved to the next level, and his 9 syllables incantation had also become sharper. Now that Wang Sheng was in the grounds of 1,000 despair, it was as though he had returned home. Apart from the fact that there was no road, there was no need for Wang Sheng to worry about any harassment from demonic beasts and insects. The underground palace had undergone a huge transformation. Wang Sheng had not been here for half a year, and this place had changed completely. The last time Wang Sheng left, this place was just a campsite surrounded by what like a village. But this time, when Wang Sheng came, he saw a huge stone wall that was at least 10 feet wide and more than 3 feet tall. It was still a circle, but this time, the city wall had surrounded an area of 4 to 5 miles. The trees were still there, but the shrubs and grass had been cleared. The huge city wall looked extremely sturdy under the support of the formation. It was completely a fortress. When Wang Sheng left, there were only about 100 people here. But now, Wang Sheng could hear and sense that there were more than 400 people on the ground, and this did not include the people in the underground palace. If Wang Sheng was not wrong, there should be about 500 people. Wang Sheng seemed to be silent along the way. It was the same when he came to the city wall. But after all, he was in the forest. Wang Sheng's movements would still cause some trees and shrubs to sway. When he was about 100 meters away from the city wall, he was finally discovered. A disciple of the Laojun temple appeared on the city wall and shouted at him. Being able to discover Wang Sheng's movements from so far away, Wang Sheng could not help but secretly praise the disciple of the Laojun temple. After revealing his figure, Wang Sheng swaggered towards the gate of the castle. Because there were disciples going out to fetch water every day, a 6 feet wide path had been opened outside the gate. When the disciples in the castle saw Wang Sheng's figure, someone quickly came out to greet him. When they saw Wang Sheng, a few disciples of the Laojun temple immediately bowed and invited Wang Sheng into the castle respectfully. After a while, old Taoist Ling Su heard the news and rushed out of the underground palace. He was stunned when he saw Wang Sheng, but then he laughed and chatted with Wang Sheng. After personally showing Wang Sheng around the newly opened castle, old Taoist Ling Su took Wang Sheng into the underground palace. In the long tunnel, there was no one else except Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su. It was only at this time that old Taoist Ling Su turned to Wang Sheng and asked, "What cultivation technique are you practicing? It has the shadow of the Taoist scripture, but it's a little different. What's going on?" "I combined the Taoist scripture with the royal family's Tranquil Heart Sutra." Wang Sheng showed off to old Taoist Ling Su proudly. "What do you think, senior brother? Doesn't it look good?" "Well, the Taoist scripture is tranquil and peaceful, and the Tranquil Heart Sutra can also keep one's spirit and qi. You've chosen a good cultivation method." Old Taoist Ling Su gave a simple comment and then changed the topic. Instead, he asked, "What are you going to do this time?" "I've encountered some problems with the advancement of my origin soul, so I need to cultivate quickly." Wang Sheng did not hide it from old Taoist Ling Su. "So I want to go inside and stimulate myself. I'll also explore the way and draw a detailed map. If I encounter them, I'll kill a few people along the way. Exchange code P43YNM. What's the problem with your origin soul?" Old Taoist Ling Su did not care about Wang Sheng's other purposes. He only cared about the one he cared about the most. Old Taoist Ling Su did not have the ability to maintain his composure like the Grand Abidine. If he was happy, he would be happy. If he was unhappy, he would be unhappy. Wang Sheng could see the worry on his face at a glance. That was why Wang Sheng was willing to become friends with old Taoist Ling Su. Old Taoist Ling Su was really to Wang Sheng's liking and cared about Wang Sheng. If there were a few people in the world that Wang Sheng could completely trust, it would probably be old Taoist Ling Su and Mei Er. Others like Song Yin, Sister Rosa, and LV when Ho could be counted on the list of people he could trust, but not to the point of complete trust. In the past, the upgrade of the original soul was to enhance the senses, so it needed some messy conditions. Wang Sheng felt warm in his heart. He quickly explained, "This time it's different. It's purely to enhance strength, so I only need spiritual qi to cultivate." Old Taoist Ling Su immediately understood what Wang Sheng meant and instantly breathed a sigh of relief. Speaking of cultivating with spiritual qi to enhance the level of the original soul, it was the right way in this world. In the eyes of others, what Wang Sheng had done in the past was just an unorthodox way. Now that Wang Sheng could return to the right way, old Taoist Ling Su was not worried at all. This was the real cultivation. In the past, he had used too many tricks. This is the right way of cultivation. The worried look on old Taoist Ling Su's face immediately disappeared. He complained to Wang Sheng, "In the future, don't think about upgrading according to your previous messy methods. With our Taoist sect's top techniques, cultivating step by step is the right way." Wang Sheng nodded. In this aspect, Wang Sheng would not argue with Ling Su. Of course, he would not let Ling Su affect him. Everyone had their own way of cultivation. Wang Sheng would listen to old Taoist Ling Su's opinions, but old Taoist Ling Su could only give suggestions. He could not dictate Wang Sheng's cultivation. "You came at the right time." In the tunnel, old Taoist Ling Su said as he walked, "I was also planning to leave. I wanted to go in alone to take a look, but you came over. It's suitable for us to go in together. It's good to go in and cultivate, but not for too long. It's very effective to stimulate yourself for a period of time, but staying there for too long is not a good thing." In this aspect, old Taoist Ling Su was the absolute authority. Wang Sheng nodded without hesitation. "It'll take at most 3 months to go back and forth. It won't be too long." Old Taoist Ling Su nodded. "Who do you want to kill along the way? Other than a few who are in a fixed place, kill whoever you meet inside." Wang Sheng did not hide his goal. "As the owner of the land of Thousand Despair, I haven't gone in to take a good look. If anyone dares to go in and take a look, they can stay in there forever." Were the vassal states really going to just build their bases and not send people in? It was impossible even if one used their toes to think. There must be experts inside who wanted to sneak in. Whoever discovered something first would have the advantage. Even if they had to pay a certain amount of sacrifice, the vassal states would definitely rush over. "You're quite honest." Old Taoist Ling Su did not comment on whether Wang Sheng's blatant intention to kill was right or wrong. He only commented on Wang Sheng's attitude. "Forget it. I'll go in with you anyway. I'll just treat it as practice." When old Taoist Ling Su finished speaking, Wang Sheng had already observed a moment of silence for the experts from the vassal states in the land of Thousand Despair. How unfortunate. But who asked you to make it in time? You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.